mind-boggling that people have this level of entitlement that they think that they can go into somebody else's life, into somebody else's house, and tell them, actually, no, I have the moral authority to tell you what you should do with your money. Get the fuck out of here.
All right, good morning.
It's such a weird thing to say. Tax them. Yeah, tax them. You want to tax them? Go ahead. But taxing them does exactly what I said. It makes it the government's responsibility, just like I said from the fucking beginning. So you're saying I'm right. Still won't defend a billionaire, but isn't my responsibility to police your view? I don't think that you should look at people categorically like that. I think that's a very dangerous way of thinking, and it's not productive, it's not healthy, and all it does is dehumanize individuals, and it creates ideological forms of thinking that do not solve problems. Categorizing and then removing certain privileges or expectations, or assigning extra privileges and expectations to groups of people because you view them as being bad is bad. How did that acquire that wealth there? You're so close. They acquire that wealth by doing something that other people willfully agree to. Like, Oprah didn't go, like, it's not like Oprah had slaves make her show. She's not making people watch the show. People watch the show because they want to watch the show. She earned that fucking money. What are you talking about? Yeah, Oprah's not stealing. She didn't steal the fucking money. Get out of here. It's so weird. Anyone defending the stake isn't class conscious? That's all people are, is class conscious. They think that that's what their whole life is about. And I get that. Like, I've been in that position too. But just because you're in a certain position doesn't mean that you just get to write and invent new rules for people based off of your own arbitrary criteria, and then get angry at other people because they don't want to play along. Yeah, she did a lot of horrific shit, bro. Oprah did a lot of horrific shit. Okay. She skinned people alive. She killed my family. She ate babies. She's not real. She's a lizard. War crimes? Oh, man. Hey, yo, Oprah, like, I actually, you know what? I don't know if I like her anymore. People without money are always trying to police what rich people do with theirs for some reason. Yeah, of course, because it's all about having a moral high ground. That's all it is. For 95% of the population, their economic class is literally the most important part of their existence. Oh, I bet it is. It definitely is. But just because it's the most important part of your existence doesn't give you the right to hate other people for not being in the same position that you are. That's like such a negative, toxic mindset. And like, I cannot imagine a person that has that mindset ever being successful in anything. It's like, you can have a mindset like that's whatever, but like, just don't expect other people to like bend down and fucking pat you on the back because you hate people because they have something you don't have. Why would you categorize it as hate? Because you are taking a group of people and then you are shitting on them because they are not doing something that they are obligated to do. And I also think that it does a tremendous disservice to actual accountability. Because the government is the one that should be accountable. However many billions Oprah has, that's nothing compared to what the government has. The government has all the resources, they have all the power, they have all the infrastructure, they have everything. And so, whenever you go and you get mad and you're wasting your energy complaining about why Oprah isn't taking her own personal money and fixing a problem that she didn't even cause, what you're doing is you're filling up space and creating noise around the people that are taking everybody's fucking money and not fixing the problems. I absolutely hate billionaires and other CEOs for being greedy fucks and suppressing wages whenever they make record money. Okay, then do something about it. Go do something about it. You know, go change the laws. Go get together with other people and change the laws. You can do that. No way, you can. Yeah, that's actually what you can do. Isn't it crazy? Because that's so easy? Okay, well, yeah, I know. It's hard for you to do that, so it's easier for you to, like, instead just sit on the internet of a chat room and then complain about it. Oh, I know, it's way easier for you, and that's why you're in the position you're in. That's the whole point. You cry and complain and do nothing.
Shush, Jasmine Gold. Gosh. Find something else to watch.
This video is sponsored by Adam and Eve, a store that sells some more risque items for the mature ladies and gentlemen of this delightful planet. Use discount code RIGHT at the store checkout and receive 50% off one item and free shipping in the US and Canada. They have a 90-day no-hassle return policy and 24/7 customer service. So if that's your jam, then I would certainly recommend them. Let's get into the video. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to The Right Opinion, the home of a twat with too much free time. And for those well accustomed to this channel, you'll know that I have a habit of covering topics that typically pertain to the YouTube sphere. I do this for a variety of reasons. It's consistent with my brand, you guys enjoy it, I have great personal investment in the subjects, and the views aren't too shabby either. All these factors are considered when taking on a new project. And as you can envision, my head runs a series of complex mathematical algorithms to calculate the most suitable themes to cover in my upcoming content. However, every now and then there is a disturbance in the matrix.
Disturbance in the matrix.
And a topic is chosen because I feel like it. Yes, I know, shocking as it may be, I do possess the ability to experience feelings. Today, this emotional intuition has led me to one of the most iconic talk show hosts of all time, and perhaps the not so unfamiliar fate that befell them this abysmal year. You see, as I've subtly alluded to just now, YouTubers have personas, myself included. Although these personas will seldom completely mirror the individual behind them, we tend to develop a more personal connection with them than we do with most celebrities because of the many personal elements that have been integrated. YouTube intimacy has always been a specific selling point, and where we may separate the art and the artist in various branches of entertainment, with content creators the relationship seems a little more inextricable. However, probably one of the most similar genres to that of YouTube is the American talk show host.
I will shut down Twitch, I will shut down YouTube gaming. I have that power.
For years we have perceived them as an invasive species on the platform, and to be honest, I can't say I'm particularly enthusiastic about their presence. However, their involvement makes a lot of sense, especially given how they brand themselves. Hell, the overlap is so obvious now we even have a YouTuber who became a talk show host. That's a video for another time. For those who are familiar with this brand of TV personality, you'll know that in spite of these scripted sequences and the big name guests, there's a lot of weight in the actual host and the qualities they hold. Whether it's the suave-suited sardonic bite of Trevor Noah, the reasoned incision of Stephen Colbert, or the James Corden. Each holds their own appeal. However, few can lay claim to the degree of market dominance that one woman has commanded, that woman being Oprah Winfrey.
This calls for a drum roll. Cue the drum roll. All right, open your boxes. Open your boxes. 1, 2, 3. You get a call. You get a call. You get a call.
Get baited, punks. Though completely true, of course, the Oprah Winfrey Show has been off air for just shy of a decade now. However, it was over 20 years ago in 1997 when an individual by the name of Ellen DeGeneres appeared on Oprah's show to speak openly about her sexuality for the first time.
Why did you think it was necessary for you to come out? You know, you've read some of the mail. People say, so if you're why not just let that be your business? Why was it necessary for you to come out, tell the public? Why was it necessary for the character to do so? Because it's okay.
At that point, Ellen was a star of the popular sitcom Ellen. Fitting name. James' coming out was integrated into the plotline of that show as well, with the revelation occurring in a scene where Oprah played Ellen's therapist. The episode that contained this sequence became one of the most viewed in the show's history, attracting an audience of 42 million. However, in spite of this, reception was mixed from within the industry and political spectrum alike, with some advertisers pulling slots and pressure from family rights concern groups. How delightful. Although Ellen was renewed for a 5th season, Disney-owned ABC ran parental advisory warnings before each episode, which alongside other factors was attributed as engineering the show's decline in ratings and eventual cancellation, stimulating debate over LGBT discrimination within the field.
What about this was adult content?
Depicting characters who are gay on television in physical acts, I believe, is adult content.
But how is that more adult content than heterosexual couples rolling around in bed, which they do.
Again, we're making a judgment about what our society is comfortable with and what they might not be comfortable with.
Aren't we then just enabling a prejudice in the audience?
We're not telling people necessarily not to watch it.
Ellen's TV career encountered a bit of a rough patch over the following years, with another attempt at a sitcom, The Ellen Show, failing to find success. However, come 2003, the winds of change were finally blowing in the direction of our comedienne. Firstly, with the release of the animated film Finding Nemo, where she played a memorable character by the name of Dory, a fish with short-term memory loss. The distinctive voice performance won Ellen both praise and awards, fortifying her status as an innovative and versatile entertainer. However, the best was yet to come, because in September, the first transmission of a little program known as The Ellen DeGeneres Show was broadcast.
It's September 8th. This is our very, very first show, and you are my very first audience.
The Ellen DeGeneres Show, commonly shortened to Ellen, is a daytime talk series, hosted by none other than our well-acquainted friend Ellen DeGeneres. Its philosophy is often portrayed as one of positivity, accented by a light-hearted tone, with audience and celebrity guest involvement in a variety of games, pranks, jokes and giveaways. Since its inception just over 17 years ago, Ellen's show has steadily ascended the daytime TV ratings hierarchy, often only being bested by the man Dr. Phil himself. The show has received 61 Daytime Emmy Awards, spawned spin-off series such as Ellen Games of Games, and garnered the reputation as a space where one can turn themselves off from all the stress in the world, an asset that becomes ever more valuable in times like these. Nonetheless, it wouldn't be possible to convey that message if the host didn't encompass those same values. And in Ellen, many found someone who is a beacon in that darkness, a doctrine of kindness represented by a person who had faced hardships to be where they are today, but had come through and wanted to share that spirit with you.
I don't think you have to have a talk show to be nice to people, to do what I'm doing. I just think that kindness is something that we should all have. That's an innate quality that we have, and we need more of that out there.
We need more kindness out there. Why she's like shitting on everybody.
Precept, and one that to many, Ellen appeared to live by herself. However, in a time where many felt that kindness was more imperative than ever, some began to claim that it had in fact deserted her, while others, well, asserted it was never even there in the first place. What followed was a media-propelled deluge of allegations that threatened to alter the perception of a beloved TV icon and everything that people thought she stood for. Conversely, many jumped to her defense, stating that these character attacks were unwarranted, that critics had imposed unfair standards, and that Ellen was still the person that she had always claimed to be. Was this a person under attack, or a persona under the microscope? Well, there's only one way of attempting to find out. Ladies, gentlemen, folks, I suggest we begin to unravel this curious case. You see, what seems recent actually goes back a bit further than you may think. So to fully understand what we're dealing with today, we're going to dust off the Trove time machine, give it a spin, and gather some intel to grasp what laid the foundations for the coming charades.
I've been studying kindness for the past 17 years on this show, and I thought I could help with some research that you know, like, I don't know, these are things that I've learned. So consider me your professor. This is like kindness 101, so pay attention. This is on the midterm.
The Ellen DeGeneres Show has, in a way, established Ellen as an icon unlike anything else she has created. This is not to diminish her contributions to her career prior. We should acknowledge that these things are cumulative. But when people think of Ellen, they think of this.
All right. What I want everyone in this room to do is just think kind thoughts. Let's witness the power of kindness. Let's just think kind thoughts, everybody.
In a way, that is incredible, and the fact that so many people have that innate association is a testament to her skills as a performer. Yet at the same time, given the marketing and framing of the program, a lot of viewers and even guests will receive the impression that the Ellen DeGeneres Show is fundamentally what happens when you just take Ellen and stick her in front of the cameras for 40 minutes. In a way, this is part of the charm. At the same time, this is an unrealistic interpretation. Now, does this mean that Ellen isn't a kind or even good person? Not necessarily. Ellen preaches those virtues on and off the air. But at the same time, it's clear that some had a mental image of Ellen which didn't match their subsequent experience, particularly when the cameras weren't rolling. For gossip magazines, when someone expressed this sentiment publicly, it was indicative of the, quote, real Ellen, and have been the predominant point against her for a fair few years. In a way, I think that was the result of the fact that certain skeptics found Ellen's shtick too good to be true. And with the online world, when someone appears so wholesome and perfect, some people feel disposed to depose them. There were insider leaks and celebrities who had negative experiences with her, such as Kathy Griffin and Corinne Olympios, with the former describing her as having quite a mean streak, and the latter referring to her on a podcast as very cold.
Would you say that's a great representation of yourself?
That is the real me. It is definitely a real side of me. But there are many other sides.
Now, it's important to note that these were mostly fringe rumors at this point. Feuds and unfavorable interactions are not unexpected in the industry. Some outlets jumped on them because, as scoops, they are pretty interesting and challenge the universal outlook. But most people didn't pay them much regard. However, the fact that minor comments received this publicity was a sign that many were ready to have their expectations subverted. Hell, a 2017 YouTube video from Kavos on this matter has amassed over 10 million views, most of which came long before 2020.
Go sit in that Ellen jail over there right now.
I mean, look how pissed Ellen is. Look at her face. I have never seen her act like this ever. It's fucking weird and all over her hat. And yes, people are laughing. Even Ellen's, cracking a few laughs. But this lady has been shamed in front of 13 million people on YouTube, a live audience, and millions watching at home. And for what?
Keep in mind that Kavos is a creator who primarily focuses on YouTube drama, and although his upload received mixed feedback on release, the traffic was indicative of the potential that such narratives harbored. That video focused on a rather peculiar clip in which Ellen roasts an audience member for taking more than one item from her merch stand against displayed instructions. Some of these more contentious clips have resurfaced over the years, attracting little slivers of public attention. These excerpts may have appeared well intended in concept, but could translate into practice as mean-spirited or blinkered. With that said, the video itself isn't anything extreme, and Kavos prefaces his critique with the acknowledgement that he actually likes Ellen. This is how many felt about her at the time, and it seemed that a lot of the criticism would amount to individual experiences of Ellen which didn't turn out as anticipated. This is the perspective that Ellen's wife Portia de Rossi echoed on an interview for Ellen's 2018 Netflix stand-up special Relatable, stating that she's just a bit more complicated than she appears on the show. There's more range of emotion.
A bit more complicated, I can believe that, but if she's dealing with like anger issues and shit, I don't know.
Being trapped in the world of being asked and danced and expected to be nice, it's real. And adding, I'm sure there's people who think she's kidding or can't have a bad day.
It wasn't like the issue with the Ellen was like she slipped up a few times and the anger got the best of her. No. The issue with Ellen was that she was directly and consistently mean to her crew on a regular basis every day. That's not a slip up. That's not like letting anger get the best of you once in a while, or you know what I mean? That's you just being a shitty person.
But she does. It's an interesting pickle she's in. Ellen has bad days, and unfortunately some people are going to see that from time to time, especially people who have had limited experience with her. Could such a point of view hold back public reproval? Perhaps, if each claim was treated as an outlier rather than a pattern. For a while, this was the case, mostly given the sparse and separate nature of previous negative testimonies and the existence of conflicting positive ones. It was particularly difficult to gather a consensus as to what Ellen's workplace was really like. The most openly critical testimony was provided by an individual by the name of Surgical Strikes, or Dan Tobin, which was posted in 2007 during the Writers Guild of America strike after Ellen questionably crossed the picket line to record her show. Tobin shared anecdotes from when he worked for her on the mostly unsuccessful sitcom The Ellen Show, which depict her as antagonistic and even derogatory towards her team. He remarks how she openly expressed the desire to sack the head writer for the lack of quality content, while noting how he would later go on to create the legendary Arrested Development. This post received ample amounts of media attention, but mostly faded when nobody else came forward to corroborate the claims. Ellen would go on to indirectly respond to this account and other headlines spurred by anonymous testimonies in the 2018 interview, where she dismissed them as quote-unquote an outright lie, emphasizing that workplace happiness is one of her utmost priorities. With that in mind, what reason did we have to doubt her commitment? Well, at the time of the interview, not much. I'm gonna save some of the other contents for later, but as it stood, one thing that was constantly harped on was the fact that Ellen was human. In a way, I think many people knew that. Yet, even if we did, the Ellen DeGeneres show had almost elevated the image of its host in a way that was asking for it to be knocked down. However, the only way this was going to happen is if a consistent stream of people who had background with DeGeneres were to come forward. And for the longest time, that just didn't look like it was going to happen. Yet, here we are today, which probably means one thing. It did.
Damn it.
For the most part, Ellen's 2019 went off without a hitch. But as the new decade beckoned, she found herself in a bit of hot water after her appearance at a baseball game with former US President George W. Bush, where they seemed to be sharing some exquisite banter. Some online didn't welcome this interaction, given Bush's rather notorious legacy, which included the now highly contested invasion of Iraq. Ellen responded to this by appealing to her philosophy of kindness, stating that this principle doesn't just extend to people who agree with her. This was met with support from many celebrities in her comment section and also inspired a monologue on a subsequent episode.
But just because I don't agree with someone on everything doesn't mean that I'm not going to be friends with them. When I say be kind to one another, I don't mean only the people that...
She's also the president of the United States, you know. Yeah, it's easy to say be kind to everyone when she gets to be in a nice seats with the president.
From hosting the Oscars following the resurfacing of some older, rather inappropriate, homophobic content. Now, personally, if he's grown from that situation, then I don't think it should be held against him. And I do genuinely think that it's sad that he had to relinquish such a fantastic opportunity. At the same time, Ellen's narrative that the upset or outrage was merely a case of malicious internet trolls may strike some as a little offbeat.
There are so many haters out there. Whatever's going on in the internet, don't pay attention to them. That's a small group of people being very, very loud. We are a huge group of people who love you and want to see you host the Oscars. You know, the trolls are, and they do it, and who knows who this person is, or people, who cares? And you can't let them destroy you, and they can't destroy you because you have too much talent. No one can do that. And for them to stop you from your dream, from what you wanted to do and what...
All right, try to get into the best seat possible.
Now, this may not seem like the most relevant incident to today's discourse, and anyone familiar with Ellen will know that her friendship with Bush and Hart pre-existed these situations. However, it was an important reminder of the degree that our TV host goodwill incorporated. Whether it was too far for some people was unimportant. It wouldn't be Ellen if it was anything else. And you know what? Come 2020, we could all use a little bit of kindness towards one another. With the bleak socio-political landscape draining...
With the big post-slash... How is this an hour in 18 minutes? What the fuck?
She became a key subject of the public's own disillusion.
This guy is really milking the honey.
Mentioned that to garner publicity, claims would need to be organized in a way that outlines a pattern of behavior rather than just individual experiences.
Oh, okay.
It was hard to see exactly
I could easily die here.
But gold was struck when
Really
Kevin T. Porter decided to raise some money for charity through the rather unorthodox method of donating for every story shared about Ellen's cruelty. The tweet announcing this quickly received hundreds and eventually thousands of replies covering Ellen's
Hello, housekeeping.
Fans whose opinion of Ellen had been spoiled following encounters with the TV personality to eyewitness accounts of Ellen transforming into a dragon, though unfortunately there isn't any evidence to support that one. However, there were a few select claims that stood out and became rather popular on their own terms, one of which regarding Ellen's former head writer Karen Kilgariff. The tweet here asserted that during the 2007 writer's strike, Kilgariff had refused to cross the picket line and was subsequently dismissed from her role, with Ellen never speaking to her again. Kilgariff had actually made a statement expressing empathy for DeGeneres at the time before crossing the picket line, so this would be a pretty damning story if true, and this is at least somewhat supported by Kilgariff's own retelling of the incident.
You're in a position now where the show has decided to cross the picket line, and you said no.
Well, I didn't say anything. I mean, I had to go on strike. So it was just, we kind of all said goodbye, like, oh, this sucks. Well, this is so weird. See you later. And, you know, when I was talking to, like, my EPs were like, we'll call you, and it was all that kind of stuff. And I don't think anybody was prepared for the kind of political action that was about to take place. Like, I know no one knew what was going on.
What happened?
Well, the Writers Guild found out that our show was going to cross the picket line. They went fucking berserk. They were just like, they wanted to, like, they made sure that I was always at the center of at the strike gate. It was really crazy. We just kind of became the eye of the storm in this weird way of, like, the show that's doing the worst thing. Because there were other...
But you weren't working.
No, we were striking. We showed up every day. Like, that was the crazy part, is our show was mad at us because the guild was mad at them.
What happened after that? With your relationship with her?
Oh, yeah, it was bad. So we got her to stay out the first day. So Karen Anderson and I both were talking to her, and we were just like, please trust us. This is way worse than you think it is.
Right.
And so she stayed out the first day. She told them, I'm not going to cross the picket line. And then that's when they swarmed her. I mean, I don't actually...
The affiliates?
No.
WGA.
The production company.
Right.
The people that ran the show. I'm sure her people.
Right.
Like, all the bigwigs went in and were just like, no, you're doing the show. So she wasn't comfortable with it, but they basically convinced her, like, this is what you have to do. And then that's kind of when the whole, like, we are union zealots story started getting floated. And the next time after that I talked to her... Yeah, like all of us striking, which we had no fucking choice. She was definitely guilted of, like, there's all these people that have jobs. You can't stop their paycheck. Right. You know, they put her in that weird position. I think the part that fell apart the worst was just that interpersonal connection of, like, nobody needed to be demonized. Nobody needed to be like, she's the one that's doing all this stuff. At one point, there was a story in the National Enquirer that I was in about how Ellen had crossed the picket line. There was, like, a picture of me on the strike line in the National Enquirer. It was the weirdest thing, and I never talked to anybody from the National Enquirer. That's not a thing you do. When you work on a show, you sign papers, confidentiality. Right. And there was no story to tell. We were on strike. It was what it was. And the people, the EPs and stuff found out, and they thought I went to the press. So it was things like that where it's like, you've known me for 5 years and you think I would go to the fucking National Enquirer to talk about this ridiculous situation. It was like, it was all that kind of stuff. By the time it was over, everyone was so estranged and everyone was so angry, and those people had to work for 4 months on a talk show with no writers. Like, they must have been stressed out of their minds. I mean, it wasn't good. I honestly felt like at that time, it was almost like an act of God. It was like, I've been here for 5 years, I've given my all. This really weird thing has happened that would never happen in a million years. It's just like this strange thing. I'm out. Like, this is my chance to go. And I just kind of washed my hands of it. Because it was just it was really painful.
Now, does this excuse Ellen's actions? Not at all. It's a situation where she could have afforded to think for herself, and she didn't by the sound of it. The fact that someone ceased contact with another individual altogether on the basis of a very difficult decision does make me wonder where her priorities lie. But it's not an indictment of character that we would need. However, we have plenty more stories to examine. Some of these characterize her as excruciatingly petty, complaining over trivialities and going as far to encourage the redundancy of those who had caused her inconveniences. Others depict her as cold, distant, and even cruel.
Cold, distant, and even cruel.
Claiming to be, or at least no, employees on the show, with the common theme being that many were discouraged from even conversing with her, with Ellen abiding by this principle pretty strictly as well. The stories just kept piling up, many of which not the most positive. Not that you'd expect it in a thread constructed on the premise of sharing your worst Ellen experiences. Additionally, the fact that exposing bad stories aids the support of a good cause may lead some to present circumstances in a more negative light than they actually occurred. Nonetheless, a good portion of these stories were hard to write off. Some came with receipts, and others came from seemingly credible sources. However, they were all united by one thing: that the Ellen DeGeneres trademarked kindness was not as all-inclusive as proclaimed. In fact, to many it appeared to be a source of personal profit, a facade that was dropped as soon as there was nothing at stake. However, as most of these tales hinged on third-party or anecdotal evidence, very little could prospectively come from it. A bunch of people gossiping on Twitter isn't really enough to topple an established TV personality alone. Nonetheless, social media can be an excellent gauge of how much meat is on the bone for a ravenous news outlet, and I'm sure many became excited at the possibility of a headline which revealed the undermining of personally promoted values by an otherwise revered public figure. Even if she didn't notice this, Ellen's producers should have recognized the warning signs and trod carefully on the eggshells before them. With the threat of COVID-19, the standards and conduct of all involved would be put to the test more than ever. This was a time where kindness and care to those around you was desperately needed, perhaps even to an unprecedented degree in the Ellen DeGeneres' show's lifespan. And if they put a single foot wrong, they could easily be subject to some very sharp scrutiny, which could permanently damage the image of a show that they love so much and their precious, precious host. The truth is that if Ellen couldn't afford the currency of kindness to those around her, then it wasn't a price that anyone else was prepared to pay. Jesus, where the hell am I? At the end of the previous part, I emphasized the significance of this viral thread. It had already spawned a few articles and sent a lot of previously unsuspecting eyes onto our daytime sweetheart. As the pandemic loomed and we were all advised to stay the hell away from each other, there were a lot of question marks over the entertainment industry and what this meant for shows like Ellen, which relied on the personal interaction with a live audience, as well as all the employees whose jobs may be on the line. At the same time, this concern went beyond the industry. It was likely felt by many people who watched Ellen and looked to her for guidance. It was an emotional time for many, and Ellen needed to be sensitive to that. How would she deal with this age of uncertainty?
I've always wanted to have this show as a distraction, as a break from whatever is going on out there that may be unpleasant. So if you're feeling down, I want to lift you up. If you're feeling trapped, I want to set you free. If you feel like you're going in the wrong direction, I want you to back that thing up.
A reassuring clip from home. The quintessential Ellen. What could possibly go wrong?
One thing that I've learned from being in quarantine is that people, this is like being in jail, is what it is. It's mostly because I've been wearing the same clothes for 10 days and everyone in here is gay. The jokes that I have.
Well, it seems the writers have gone on strike again because that joke kinda sucked. And it didn't go down particularly well with viewers either, with many tweeting out their dismay at various aspects of the joke. Now, there are many angles you can go at it from, however, I think once again it just makes Ellen seem a bit out of touch with the state of the world. The analogy doesn't really make much sense on concept, and its shortcomings are only intensified by the focus on Ellen's woes, which don't draw the most personal sympathy.
You know what movie wouldn't have worked during a quarantine? Home Alone.
You're killing it today, Ellen.
Now, with that said, it's a bad joke. It happens. At a time like this, it seems excessive to be angry. Who knows the stress that Ellen or her staff may be under that clouded their judgment on the delivery of such a gag? She would have to do a little worse than that to come under fire, wouldn't she? Well, a week later, it was reported that many crew members of the Ellen DeGeneres show were frustrated at their treatment following the state of crisis. As leaked by two anonymous sources, they'd been given little to no communication and shown no concern by the show's executives. Further to this, many were frustrated that the show had hired an outside, non-union tech company to record her home broadcast. When employees did finally receive a response from producers over 2 weeks later, they were informed that their pay would be reduced by 60%, to an amount that would be hardly sufficient for many workers. Much of the workforce probably felt their future was up in the air, and the alleged ambiguous messaging from leadership likely didn't assuage these anxieties. To wait for such difficult news can hardly be fair, and many were quick to point this out. Provided this is true, can this be directly attributed to Ellen? Not entirely. She can't be expected to keep in touch with everyone who is working for her. I think that a majority of people can understand that. However, the problem that once more rears its ugly head is that contradiction. The people who've given their all to keep a show running deserve to be kept in the loop above anyone else. And whether that's Ellen's direct responsibility or not, people don't want to see her as being in a system that is antithetical to what she advocates for. With this story, a new narrative began to emerge, one that didn't just accuse Ellen of hypocrisy on the basis of her principles, but of a greater double standard. When dealing with fellow celebrities, Ellen made the most heartfelt appeals to the qualities of sympathy and decency. After all, they are human like the rest of us. However, these standards appeared to be neglected when dealing with anyone outside the celebrity clique. Some felt this way following the George W. Bush controversy, that there had always been this separate class of elite above the consequences of their own actions, and that Ellen had since joined them. The contrast of a multimillionaire in their mansion grumbling about lockdown while many employees' livelihoods were in jeopardy was not a flattering portrait, and only served to highlight the us and them contrast.
I wanted to start doing my new show as soon as possible because it's really for people who are stuck at home, and especially my staff and crew. I love them. I I miss them, and the best thing I can do to support them is to keep the show on the air. So here we are.
However, this still wasn't the whole story, as clips began to surface which even threw the idea of Ellen's preferential treatment of celebrities into contention. These could be quotes from people reflecting on their experience, such as Nikki's tutorials, who decide to address the show's hospitality on a Dutch talk show.
Hoe was het bij Ellen DeGeneres?
Nou, laat ik zeggen dat er een groot verschil is tussen De Wereld Draait Door en Ellen. En dan geef ik jullie het positieve handje.
Want?
Oh, punt. Nou.
Nou, daar wil ik meer weten.
Nou ja, er zijn bepaalde... Kijk, bijvoorbeeld, het is wel heel leuk dat jij wel vooraf hallo komt zeggen en zo. Het is bij Ellen in ieder geval, het is wat ik heb meegemaakt hier en andere landen, is dat gewoon een hele andere wereld. Het zit gewoon iets anders.
Afstandelijke killer.
Tikje.
It seems there's even a hierarchy within the industry, and despite being applauded on air, her treatment elsewhere seemed less than stellar. But that's just an account. What about direct clips? Well, there were those as well.
It's good to see you. Happy belated birthday. When was your birthday?
It was October 4th.
October 4th.
This is Dakota Johnson. She is an actress, model, and friend of Ellen. At the start of the interview, DeGeneres decides to jokingly take a jab at the fact that Johnson hadn't invited our gracious host to a birthday party. However, there was a small hitch with that.
Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen. You were invited. Last time I was on the show, last year, you gave me a bunch about not inviting you, but I didn't even know you wanted to be invited. But I did invite you and you didn't come. So.
This time you invited me?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
How do you know? I don't think so.
Ask everybody. Ask Jonathan, your producer. Who said you were?
I was invited? Why didn't I go?
I don't know.
Was it? Oh yeah, I had that thing.
In fact, at the time of Dakota's due, Ellen was occupied at a little baseball match with former President George W. Bush. Now, this exchange appeared to be in good humor. However, the circumstances surrounding it prompted many to return to it, especially with relevance to how disconnected Ellen is portrayed to be. Other clips were even more incriminating, such as a now rather infamous scene with Mariah Carey, where to ascertain whether she's pregnant with a child, Ellen decides to offer the singer an alcoholic beverage, something that anyone expecting a child would wish to avoid. I'll also add, for further context, that Carey suffered a miscarriage following this interview, which really does not age it well at all.
And then the other thing is that people are saying that that you're pregnant. There's rumors.
Don't discuss that.
All right. Well, you don't have to.
No, that's okay. No, honestly,
you don't have to
how
answer
do
me. Let's just toast with champagne and decide.
But they've been saying that since we. I can have some champagne. It's just fattening.
No. Let's toast to you not being pregnant. If you're not pregnant, then we should.
Oh my goodness. I can't believe
It is a messed up thing to do, but it is a good joke.
How about to the future? You can for both of our futures. Who knows what they hold?
Who knows? All right, go ahead.
Okay, cheers.
Yes, cheers.
It's too early for me. I only drink it after 3 p.m.
Yeah. You're
As a concept for a lowbrow gag, it may have been mildly amusing. At first, I actually thought it was far too personal to not be staged. However, Carey would later go on to say that the interrogation made her rather uncomfortable, and when you take this into account, it's hard to look upon Ellen favorably. Even if this wasn't her idea, she should have recognized and respected the discretion of her guest, and not fallen foul to such tabloid treachery.
I have my own dog. Actually, she's pregnant. I have 2 dogs, both
Well, her
Jack
master
Russells.
isn't.
Her master is, well, let me take some of the vodka next to me.
Why aren't you answering?
Ellen did that to me and tried to put me on the spot
All right.
with some alcohol.
Okay. I'm not
Real
trying
alcohol.
I'm not trying to put you on the spot. To me, it's nice if you are. Okay.
As these clips began to be collated outside the other documented claims, some began to search for an explanation for such conduct. Was she out of touch?
Oh my God.
Or out of care? Well, with more allegations to come, let's talk about it. With the
Oh my
gradual
god.
mounting agglomeration
He
of content,
smashed
there was
it.
little doubt that something here was not quite right. However, at the
Thank
same
you.
time, there was a divergence in the theories that many adopted when attempting to assess Ellen's actions. On one hand, some believed that much of this illustrated a celebrity who had simply forgotten what it was like to live in the real world, and thus had become insensitive to the needs of many of those she claimed to care about. To be honest, many of the rich and famous likely suffer from a lack of relatability. However, their careers don't rely on connecting to an audience in the same way that Ellen's does.
Are you fans of the show, correct? Yeah. And you watch the show regularly? All right. Great.
One of those who subscribed to this school of thought was a former producer from The Ellen DeGeneres Show. Speaking anonymously in an article published in the New York Post, they recounted the time Ellen couldn't read a text after losing her glasses and decided the reasonable response would be to phone Steve Jobs up and inform him that the iPhone should have a bigger font. They say that's Ellen and that she's not some demon, just a person who's been living in a privileged bubble for way too long. This doesn't seem like an absurd point of view and would perhaps explain some of these supposed rather petty behaviors as claimed by others. In focusing on her role as a host, Ellen may have been isolated from many that she works with, either by her own decision or through corporate design, something that I'll probably talk about in due course. Some who had worked with Ellen previously stating they had an overall positive experience, such as the former head writer Karen Kilgariff, appeared to have their relationship cut short pretty abruptly when a conflict of interest arose. In Karen's interest, she was clearly hesitant to characterize Ellen as the source of this falling out, especially with the attested corporate meddling. However, others would not be as charitable and have a more damning verdict on our celebutante chum. Where some may stop short of characterizing our
damn it!
as malicious, others would venture with far less trepidation, particularly with some of the more incriminating testimonies and clips on display.
And then you had a very tough time. You couldn't get a job. What was that like?
Not only couldn't get a job, couldn't get someone on a phone. I mean, they're literally, the show was canceled and no one called me. It was just, I found out, my assistant read it in the paper. And, I felt sorry for myself. I felt like this isn't fair. I thought people liked me, and why did this change anything? And I still am the same person, and, everything felt horrible to me.
Ellen is a TV veteran and someone who has had more than ample experience with the worst of the industry. However, although that makes her essentially the hierarchy highly respectable, it also makes the selective application and even outright neglect of certain responsibilities harder to defend. With some personages, you can use ignorance.
Stupid fucking knockdown.
Even if you personally believe they have a duty to be aware of the consequences their actions have, it may make sense that they lose sight of this. With Ellen, simply put, it seemed much harder to believe, with many coming to the conclusion that she must have been aware of these injustices, but had made the conscious decision to not care. Some would go further than this, though, to say that she may even take pleasure in the subjugation of those around her, partaking in excessively cruel and sadistic behavior. This falls in line with many of the more unforgiving stories regarding her conduct, and is not to be discounted either. Another person who would come out to support this in the month following was a bodyguard who escorted Ellen at the 2014 Academy Awards. He stated that although his experience with Ellen's wife Portia was rather positive, this went downhill quickly when he met Ellen, who barely even made eye contact with him, and radiated this aura of frigidity that bothered the chaperone in question. He summarizes his thoughts by saying that it's kind of demeaning in the way that she treats people other than those who are in her circle. Now, both of these aforementioned positions have their advocates, and cases which seem to argue against, even people who claim that a lot of what was being said was completely fabricated. However, this criticism was not relenting, with many more people jumping in to discuss their brushes with the embattled icon. Yet in spite of this, all remain mostly quiet on Ellen's social medias. Addressing drama is normally not a positive process, whether it's the right thing to do or not, so she kept pushing on. But insider reports kept spilling that these allegations had affected her, and it was hard to deny that she must be somewhat aware of what was being said. Now, generally, the rule for a lot of public figures is to avoid punching down onto claims that may not necessarily have the substantiation to merit a response. However, with leaks and rumors reaching fever pitch, it felt like the program was at breaking point. Murmurings were being constantly released to the press, who promoted it to the awaiting public in a vicious cycle that was gradually eroding away at the show and its host's stature. At the start of July, the word began to spread that the Ellen DeGeneres show may be cancelled altogether because of the imputations. And although the production company behind Ellen dismissed this as speculation, unsurprisingly so, with what happened in the coming weeks, they may have wished they had, because on Thursday, the 16th of July, a damning dossier was published, which called out the toxic workplace environment behind the award-winning production. It outlined unfair dismissals, discrimination, favoritism, and neglect of responsibilities typically expected of a show with such moral grounding. Yes, one current and 10 former employees painted the workplace culture as one ruled by fear, with most of the blame being placed at the door of the producers, who had distanced DeGeneres and validated an environment that marginalized vulnerable individuals who needed support above anything else. In some ways, a lot of what was detailed wasn't any more incriminating than previous testimonies published. And this was much less focused on Ellen, but for some reason this article cut deeper. Maybe it was the cumulative factor alongside other content, maybe it was the socially charged narratives that had become ever more relevant in recent months. But for me, once more, it was the organization of a slew of stirring stories, posted in a credible, well, moderately credible news outlet. In the article, the executive producers, who are the subject of a lot of the criticism, expressed shock at the allegations, pledging their commitment to a safe and friendly workspace for all. They seek to accept full culpability for the misconduct listed, attempting to take attention away from Ellen.
Wrong way.
In many ways, this wasn't her story. Once more, at the start of the article, there was this emphasis on Ellen's narrative of being kind, effectively being used to contrast with the coming content. This wasn't just any workplace, this was Ellen's workplace, and if she was as kind as she was perceived, silence was no longer an option. Yet speaking out was a costly obligation all the same. Allow me to explain. Let's pull it back to Ellen as a person and Ellen as a show. In many ways, they are separate entities, but the fact that the latter is built on the former means that no matter what the producers asserted, this was as much Ellen's problem as it was anyone else's. As one of these staff members said, if she wants to have her own show and have her name on the show title, she needs to be more involved to see what's going on. One of the greatest problems with this industry is that there's often this separation between individual hosts and the productions behind them. That seems easy to forget as an audience member. But it is understandable when the host has a more passive role, such as in certain reality programs or televised talent contests. And even then, in many ways, as an anchor to the experience, a presenter can't expect to be focused on controlling every aspect behind the scenes. However, this was reaching a point where Ellen's neutrality would be seen as a tacit endorsement of an undesirable status quo. The allegations were well-founded, and so she needed to say something. Before she could say anything, though, Warner Bros. Stepped in to launch their own exhaustive internal investigation, which would determine the source of the problem. On July 27th, Variety reported that a memo had been sent out to staff members the week before, announcing the upcoming audit. With the consultation of a third-party organization and an employee relations group, interviews were held and circumstances were assessed, and 3 days after the initial story was published, Warner Bros. Released a statement on the findings of their assessment, revealing, quote, deficiencies in the workplace environment, while also signifying that changes would be made. This was a statement made both on behalf of the company and DeGeneres, which probably wasn't the best call, but it seems that Ellen had distributed her own separate statement to the staff, where she communicated remorse for a failure to stay conscious to oversights and shortcomings, vowing to make sure that a repeat of such antics would be avoided at all costs. This statement was once more picked up by the press, who framed it as Ellen finally breaking her silence. However, it was mostly an internal acknowledgement of failings only provoked by the report prior, and doesn't really mention much else. Not that you'd expect it to, but it's hardly what some online represented it as. Nonetheless, Ellen's statement was enough to begin a strange chain reaction that would take this ongoing controversy to new heights. You see, although the promise of a more secure work environment may have appeased some employees, those not directly affected appeared reluctant to accept her apology, likely because many felt that her angle was mostly adopted for the sake of damage control rather than actual regret. As a response to these specific accusations leveled against her, many felt this merely added further weight to the belief that she was just another self-interested social vulture, and this time it wasn't just the internet rebel who were paying attention. In fact, Ellen's statement attracted the eyes of some pretty notable figures. One of those who left his input very shortly after the coverage by journalists was the esteemed voice actor Brad Garrett, who had appeared on Ellen's show during the 2000s. However, it appears that any camaraderie had since faded, as he laid into the talk show host pretty harshly, commenting in a now deleted tweet that it was, quote, common knowledge that Ellen had mistreated her staff, while also claiming to know a few personally. This was then reported on by websites, one article prompting a reply from Back to the Future star Leah Thompson, appearing to affirm Garrett's postulations with her best Yoda impression. Around the same time, Australian radio host Neil Breen, no, not that Neil Breen, recollected the time he had worked as a producer on a show that interviewed Ellen, the numerous restrictions that the production team had imposed on them, and the subsequent atmosphere that yielded.
Well, when Ellen DeGeneres came to Australia to do her show in 2013, I was the executive producer of the Today Show. So we partnered with them. She was brought out here by Swiss, the vitamin company, who was sponsoring the whole thing. And originally she was going to co-host the Today Show. Then she was going to do this. Then she was going to do it. And the whole thing got watered down to Ellen DeGeneres would do a sit-down interview. Right? We took the whole Today Show to Melbourne at our expense, but she would do a sit-down interview with Richard Wilkins. We walk in, and then the Ellen show, there was a lot of them. There was a lot of people there. Anyway, the producers called us aside and said, okay, this is how it's going to work here this morning. Ellen's going to arrive at, 10:15, and she'll be sitting in this chair here, and Richard, you'll be sitting in this chair here. Now, Neil, no one's to talk to Ellen. So you don't talk to her, you don't approach her, you don't look at her. She'll come in, she'll sit down, she'll talk to Richard, then Ellen will leave, and we'll give you the thing. And I sort of said, are you fair dinkum? Oh, I can't look at her. I found the whole thing bizarre. Anyway, I got to tell, I'm not blaming Ellen, because I didn't get to talk to her, because I wasn't allowed to. So I don't know whether she's a nice person or not. I wouldn't have a clue. But I can tell you the people who worked with her walked on eggshells the whole time, and the whole thing was totally bizarre. Like, we're there to do an interview with her to promote what she's doing, but you can't look at her? Like, someone get real.
In case it couldn't get any worse, around the time she was being publicly chastised, further allegations were made towards producers regarding inappropriate advances, actions, and comments towards employees, which included the invitation to provide one of our venerated executives with a hand job, and even the occasional grope here and there. The main recipient of these allegations was producer Kevin Lemon, who many said veiled his conduct in sarcasm, yet carried it out in the most predatory fashion. There were also allegations which covered two other producers, Jonathan Norman and Ed Glavin. This was corroborated by many other former employees and seemed to incriminate other producers who didn't take action against such behavior. DeGeneres' own role is not explicitly spoken about, but as with previous incidents, it brings her position into question as a person whose environment should reflect her own values. With these further contributions, it seemed that Ellen's reputation was practically in the gutter, and with ratings in freefall being at least partly attributed to the ongoing outcry, reprise seemed to be a distant dream. You can't exactly be surprised though, after all, whether Ellen was an actively malicious actor or a distant celebrity no longer close to the inner workings of their own product, it was undermining her own appeal. And as it stood, these were the only two explanations that made sense of the situation, and neither made her look good. However, as the walls were caving in, it seemed that Ellen may have one last shot at redemption, coming from those most familiar with her, fellow celebrities, who wanted to present a third perspective, one much more sympathetic.
We're back with Katy Perry, and you're about to go on tour, and
right.
You are...
September.
You are single. And
Ready to mingle.
Ready?
From the initial post by Kevin T. Porter, there had always been those who had spoken up for our besieged heroine, telling of the genuinely positive experiences with her. And although it obviously doesn't represent a universal outlook, the fact that a fair few of these testimonies were going against the Twitter grain made them seem more authentic in a way. However, they had mostly been isolated and dismissed given their relatively faint presence in a sea of criticism. With August, however, this was about to change. As many had shared their negative experiences, public figures came out in droves to share their positive ones. Music producers, award-winning actors, comedians, and many more. Their stories told a different narrative. Sure, there may be rumors circulating, but the experience they had with Ellen was invaluable, and she has done so many fantastic things for so many people. She may not be perfect, but surely, whatever she was enduring right now wasn't fair. She had brought much more light to this world than many others, and to oust her on the back of hearsay? Well, that's just ludicrous. The internet is a place full of negativity and stigmatization, and in a year like this, it was time to take a step back and remember what people like Ellen really gave us. A heartwarming sentiment for sure, but was it enough to dig Ellen out of the hole she had found herself in? Well, let's talk about it. With the attestations coming from many household names, this third narrative began to gather steam. There were so many people paying tribute to Ellen's character, many of whom would have significant personal background with her. Maybe online toxicity had overcome us, and it was time to look at the bigger picture. Some clearly agreed with this and echoed the sentiment on their timeline. After all, Ellen had done much more for communities than many of those internet dwellers throwing second-hand shade. However, at the same time, the celebrity narrative didn't exonerate Ellen in the way that one may oppose. In fact, for some, it actually solidified more cynical theories relating to her demeanor. Why is that? Well, let's think back to the initial instance and what many allege they told us. For many, it felt like Ellen provided preferential treatment to those in her elite circles, and had a tendency to shun those outside of that. Therefore, it was completely plausible that those most likely to vouch for her were those in the elite circle. Now, with that in mind, there are plenty of appeals to the greater positive effect that Ellen has generated beyond those who have direct experience with her, given her records in fighting for human rights, animal rights, and many more. This is all well and good, but it doesn't really dispel the main point against the TV personality. From a social perspective, Ellen may have left a net positive impact on the world around her. I'm sure there are many people that her feel-good spirit has touched and inspired on a day-to-day basis. Equally, I'm sure there are many people who've been aided by her charitable ventures and philanthropy. But the moment that we let someone's net positive impact absolve them of all possible criticism is the time when our fundamental ability to think critically has failed. Sure, there may be some points where appealing to a greater impact as a public figure is a valid response, but responding to people sharing negative experiences and indictments of workplace toxicity doesn't fulfill this criteria. A lot of these statements just feel like Ellen messaged the celebrity Twitter group chat asking people to vouch for her, because it doesn't seem like any of these people actually have a clue who they're responding to or what's even happening. And the fact that these posts were made a few days after the further impropriety allegations just makes them seem even more clueless. At the end of the day, I'm sure we're all happy that people had a positive experience with someone who they greatly admired. But this didn't alter what was happening elsewhere, and how many wanted more than just people saying, "She's nice, trust me." This sense of divide wasn't aided when former Ellen DJ Tony Okumboa commented that he personally stood with his fellow colleagues, and had also experienced some of the reported toxicity in his decade-shy stint on the show. There was one glimpse of hope for Ellen on a more personal basis though, as Samantha Ronson, a person who had worked with Ellen on more than a few occasions, came out in support of the Under Fire TV host, saying that her experiences as an employee have been positive, creating at least some diversity from outside the celebrity clique. The current DJ, Stephen Boss or Twitch, had left a
You know, okay, so I don't know. I just came in and like I was doing a mission. I was doing a mission out in Arathi Highlands. Killed this giant guy or whatever. And I ended up having to take this piece of this guy to Ironforge. And now the guy's saying in Ironforge that I need to head to the Badlands and find this guy. And if you can think this game, like in any retrospective, like a little imagination, like, I don't know, I'm spoiled, I guess. But that spoiling has done a lot to help me kind of use the imagination of like, imagine this in a dialogue, like you're watching a show and the guy just proceeds to kill a massive giant, like a giant stone guy. Proceeds to go to Ironforge and the guy's like, "Aye! That druid in the Lost was once a member of our order, the Twilight Hammer! But he's lost his mind and scorned their teachings." I don't know. Just like, and then he like tells you gotta go to the Badlands. You're just like, all right, let's go to the Badlands. I've had enough of whatever this degenerous thing is. The most hated comedians of all time. Sure, fuck it.
Trappy Potter. Hey, parents are dead. Scar on my head. Best friend is Harry Potter, but with raping in it, right?
Holy shit.
Wow, that was a very unfortunate place to peruse their video.
You have the boy's magic.
No, this magic belongs to no boy.
Of course, you can see why a story about a boy who never grows up might appeal to certain Hollywood executives. But if we discount
Yeah, oh, that's fucked up.
what could possibly have possessed Disney, this Disney, not that magical kingdom you remember from when you were a kid, to bring Peter Pan back to the screen? It's a timeless classic rich with motifs, the beauty of childlike innocence.
Common. It's one of the videos they remake over and over again.
Growing up, the ultimately unfulfillable and unfulfilling nature of our desires after eternal youth. Being timeless, it's had a great many adaptations, most on the stage, but a fair few on the screen as well. The famous Disney cartoon from the 1950s, the rather less famous 2003 live-action adaptation, and the entirely unfamous Ben Zeitlin version from 2020 called Wendy.
Whoa, they don't even mention Hook as like a rendition of Peter Pan. I guess it's not, because it's when Peter Pan grew up. Peter Pan actually ends up growing up in Hook, where Robin Williams plays him. And I guess they don't consider that a remake. And I guess it's not a remake, and it's one of my most favorite movies. Maybe they need to do more of that kind of shit.
And if you've never heard of that, you're in pretty good company. Besides which, a number of spin-offs of varying quality and relevance. Hook, Return to Neverland, Tinkerbell, and so on. So we've not exactly been short on Pan-related content over recent years, and the base...
I don't know. The more I like backlog my mind with the video, like there's a period, like it takes a special kind of writer and it takes a special kind of actor. And Robin Williams was that kind of actor. Because like there's a moment in time where like he ends up remembering that he's Peter Pan, and then he just completely becomes Peter Pan. Like he forgets about his kids. Like for a moment, he forgets, and it's just like old times for him. And Robin Williams portrays like this very young-minded individual very well. Like he's such a brilliant actor, but I don't know if someone could do that. I don't know if there's a writer that could do that anymore. And that may not be fair to the writers, to be honest. Little do I know, because I'm not a writer. I'm just. Maybe it's a biased statement that I made prior. Maybe it's just because I love that movie so much, and I can't really correlate any newer movies that kind of do that. And is that because it's nostalgia? Because when I was younger, I didn't. I mean, that's not even fair to say, because now I've seen it even as an adult, and it's still a fantastic movie. And if I could, like, I remember if I was to watch The Lost Time now, like the ones with the dinosaurs, it's not that good. You know, there's some things that aren't good when you grow up. And if my brain could hold on to more stuff than it does, I might be able to give you better examples. But I'm poor about that. But that's okay. It's a work in progress. All things are.
Basic tale, as well as various interpretations of its consequences.
Badlands. What level's the Badlands?
Redone. So, what else is there to say? What do we accomplish by doing it again? Does anybody think a live-action rework going straight to Disney Plus would perform better than, I don't know, just a straight re-release of the 1950s original? But this is 2023, and we are in the era of the remake. Disney is by no means
35 to 45.
HBO is bringing back Harry Potter a whopping 12 years after the
Yeah,
last
fuck it.
premiere, but it is undoubtedly the standard bearer. Disney's had
I
various
still need to head to
slogans over the years,
Stormwind.
but has latterly swapped "Where Dreams Come True" to "Let's Do It Again but Worse."
Is that like
And
their
it's burned through its
reservoir?
back
That's
catalogue
cool.
so quickly that it's now
Or a
begun
beach.
remaking its own
They're like
originals from within the last
under the
decade.
ground beach.
We've had Mulan, The Little Mermaid is eagerly not anticipated. We've had Maleficent, Jungle Book, Alice in Wonderland, Beauty and the Beast, Dumbo, Aladdin, The Lion King, Cruella, and Pinocchio within the last 9 years, so that's the back catalogue pretty much dispensed with. How about Moana then? Remember Moana? That's
Great
an
movie.
old classic. Came out in 2016.
So?
Ancient history. Well past time to revisit it. None of this is
Is it?
necessarily objectionable. It's not as though Disney's recent originals have been particularly inspiring. Strange Worlds, anyone? The problem is, though, that the only need being met is the company's balance sheet.
Okay, I agree.
Reboots are fine if you've lit upon some new way of presenting or telling the story, some new interpretation that really adds to, or at any rate comes close to, the quality of the original. But go back over that list of Disney's recent remakes. How many of them meet that criteria? How many of them even manage to summon up the magic of the stories they're repeating? Did the live-action Lion King contain half the range of emotion of the animated original?
I never saw the
And it didn't.
animated.
Did they compensate for that by adding something new to the telling? The answer is no again, by the way. The problem is not with remakes per se. Many of the old Disney animated classics were adaptations, reboots in different artistic mediums, and drawing on stories that were themselves innovative reimaginings of older tales. Peter Pan takes half his name and no small part of his character from gods of the Greek myths. Aladdin is lifted from an amendment to the 1001 Nights. Cinderella comes from thousands of ancient folk and fairy tales.
I'm sure.
The Jungle Book was given to us by Rudyard Kipling first, and so on. No.
Yeah, that's a newer movie or newer show or story.
Saw the artistic, cultural, even the magical value of the stories they were lifting, and made conscious attempts to distill that magic in new and delightful ways. The value modern Disney sees in these adaptations is material. Its recent failings are a good guide and predictor of future performance. Nobody involved seems particularly moved by the stories they're borrowing.
No, they're
Few
crap.
seem even to understand them. And the impetus for their recreation isn't, this ancient story is popular for a reason, let's understand the reason and reap the reward. No, it's rather more like, this old show is like, really popular, everyone's heard of Peter Pan, right? Instant money, do it, now. It's a company-wide problem that is dangerously close to being a culture-wide problem, if it isn't one already. People will often glibly remark that they keep doing these remakes because they can't write anything new, and it's true, but it's also symptomatic. Disney and others like it can't tell new stories for the same reason their adaptations fall increasingly flat. An illiterate grasp of history, an absence of moral imagination, and no understanding of or love for the craft and purpose of storytelling to begin with. A writer can write for no audience but himself, satisfying no love but his own, and it would cost him nothing but time. A screenwriter, on the other hand, is consumed by his studio's need of profit, and the incentive is all too often reduced to the cheapest way to capitalize on an old and sincere labor of love, which consequently.
So basically, he's saying that writers can write, and I agree. There's plenty of examples of shows and movies that have come out even today that are really good. The problem is how string-necked they might be by a studio or how restricted. But the problem is the studios don't seem to like understand the value of being able. I think companies are too consumed about making money, and right now the only true way to make money is to be politically correct. And I think the problem in truth is that companies only want to maximize their money, so they try to find the lowest common denominator to fill the gaps in a lot of their movies. And the problem with that is that they fill the gaps with a lot of things that are political versus things that make sense within a movie. And the problem on top of that is the reason why so many people are frustrated with the politicalness of the things they're doing today is because they're not making new fucking stories. Make a new story about a woman that's basically infallible in a godlike character, because there's plenty of shows that depict male imagery that like that. Okay, so do it. But make it your own, make it new. And if no one wants to buy it, no one wants to take it up, because it's not like an old tried and true, someone will. New stories are gonna become like the way it the new, you know, no, maybe not new stories, because people come up with new stuff all the time. I think it's just people are afraid because if it flops, you know, it's a huge waste of money, but they blame and then they'll blame the idea, but really was it the idea or how much the idea got chopped up and massacred to make for a movie? I don't know. A good example is like Dune. The original Dune book versus what they chopped out a lot of shit to fit it. And it's a good movie, but it could have been better. Could have been way better.
Consequently carries none of the love and imposes all of the labor upon the suffering audience. All of this is on display in the latest soulless grift on Disney Plus, Peter Pan and Wendy, which is almost twice
Peter
as long
Pan
as
and
the
Wendy.
animated original and contains so little of its magic that I'm not even going to bother making up a fraction. Or, well, sod it, it contains 1/4 of the original's magic. There you go, have that. Now, I guess we'll have to get on with the plot. This won't be a complete and intensive breakdown, as I think the basic story of Peter Pan is tolerably well known. Rather, I'm going to chart the major beats and mark where and why this film decides to do things differently, and then note the results. It's also a bit of an unexpected video for me, and it's more strictly critical than comedically critical. I'm saving my ammunition for the next Mandalorian video. Overall, this is not the worst adaptation in the world, but it is a marked downgrade on its predecessors, and I think it's useful to understand why they work and this doesn't.
This is a nice pair of boots.
Will inevitably say, but it's just a kid's film. Okay, fine.
Light bless
but
you.
so was this, and this is infinitely better. A hard divide between childhood and adulthood is contrary to J.M. Barrie's entire reason for writing Peter Pan to begin with. Try reading a book, you moose. We begin in the Darling household. The Darling brothers play acting a sword fight while Wendy packs for an upcoming trip to boarding school, from which she breaks to join in the sword fight, at which she is, naturally, very skilled already. Just like you'd expect of a girl in Victorian England, where in the 21st century imagination, every little girl was a budding Emmeline Pankhurst, and Emmeline Pankhurst was really no different from the boys, except that she was better at pretty much everything.
Even Larry Redbeard, wait.
Her father kicks off what you would think would be the film's strong-armed theme, age versus fun. In the event, though the theme is present in the film, it's not really stressed, and you get the sense the writers didn't really have much to say about it. Wendy's told she is too old to be having this sort of fun. She has to set a better example to her brothers. There's rather a lot to say about this theme, but we will come back to it presently. The film needs to very quickly establish Wendy's role in the script, which is less subtle and artful than the role she occupied in the original. Her mother downright tells us that she is a leader, that the boys will follow her, so she needs to be a good leader, even though she's off to boarding school the next day, where she will, amongst other things, be rather hard to follow. Anyone who remembers the original will recall that the leaving the
I probably gotta run to the Badlands.
is sort of metaphorical. She's not actually being taken away from the house. She's being taken out of the nursery where her brothers sleep.
Well.
That's the symbolic growing that she's being forced to undertake, which is an altogether less messy way of introducing the problem than this. Darling mother tells her she needs to get ready for the life ahead of her, just as she once did, prompting Wendy to snap back to her mother's life, which already took what her belted, seen and not heard and all that. Her mother intuits that Wendy is afraid of growing up, which Wendy confirms, and this scene is reasonably done. Nothing special, but it does the job. Her mother sings her to sleep, which moves us swiftly along to Tinkerbell's nighttime visit, where the CG struggles rather to fit her into the world.
Except the sun.
A cheap approach of blurring the background behind her, except in the distant shots. But that only really serves to make her look more uncanny than less, with a vast chasm between her foreground and the blurred background.
Need help?
For reasons unknown, she levitates Wendy.
The blasted lands.
Captures her, which occasions Peter Pan's first introduction, of which a couple of things to note.
Right.
In the first place, and as
Winter
will be quite well
Highlands,
established
Easter
later,
Plague Lands,
young
Ghost
Alexander
Lands,
Malone
Ever
does not
Song,
fit
Thistle
into that
Blade,
exceptionally
Alterac
small
Mountain,
bracket of child actors
Burning
who can
Steps,
actually
Badlands.
And in the second place,
Oh, Badlands. I need to go to
fairy sounds an
Badlands.
awful lot like furry.
Fuck
Maybe his
Modan.
first
Be
line is
careful.
essentially,
She
King's honor, friend.
is a fairy. If I know
Or the
one thing
Alliance.
about fairies, it's that they don't take kindly to being called bugs.
she is a fairy, and fairies don't take kindly to being called bugs. Fair enough, my dude, but the cure to an infestation of fairies is the same as for an infestation of bugs. It's fumigation. Maloney isn't going to be singled out for criticism. The acting is quite consistently am-dram throughout the film, but he does deserve some singular criticism, as when you take the magic out of the performance of Peter Pan himself, you take an outsized share of it out of the film as a whole. A chunk of the problem here comes from the writing around him. In this telling, Peter Pan is a common myth in universe. The kids all reference him, the kids play act as him in our opening, and so his first appearance is denied much of the magic of surprise. He turns up and they instantly know who he is, with some minor shock at seeing what is already familiar, but with no wonder at his essential well, existence. Which, when you compare it to the 2003 version, makes this telling pretty mundane by comparison. Guy everyone knows pays a visit is much less exciting as an introduction than Impossible Fairy Boy flies through a window. The setup is closer to the animated original, but without understanding what made that work. The 53 film's opening finds the magic in revealed truth because prior to Peter's arrival, the darling father is the designated rubbisher and representative of a fearful adulthood. He embodies the drudgery of real life, and he is the authority figure. His word is law. He scolds the children for playing make-believe, for believing in Peter Pan's existence. He threatens to take Wendy out of the nursery and to force her to grow up. He even disabuses the dog, Nanny, of its own childish myth that sees it act as a real nanny to the children.
Well, you're not really a nurse at all. You're, well, a dog. And the children aren't puppies. They're people. And sooner or later, Nana, people have to grow up.
So the kids play acting the story of Peter Pan doesn't detract from the surprise of his appearance in the 53 film, because his appearance essentially counts as a moral victory for the children. Having been told, no, you can't, here, under the nose of the tyrannical parent,
He's low.
Rip. Yes, you can. The father acts against imagination.
Come on.
Peter Pan's arrival is a victory for imagination, and so a victory for childhood. The wonder then isn't so much that Peter Pan exists as what he represents. So both the 1953
Come on, science, why that letter?
have their own ways of conveying magic. While the 2023 version doesn't as much, it seems a bit too familiar with its own mythos to really revel in the fun of it, or to understand and convey the joy children feel at realizing that their imagination is pretty much the limit. The distant and never realized threat of boarding school for Wendy doesn't come close to presenting the proximate threat of adulthood, as embodied in her father, or the otherworldliness and unknown possibilities that Peter represented in the 2003 film. Another chunk of the problem comes with dialogue, so again it's a fault of the writing and not of Maloney's delivery, lacking though that is. Compared once more with the 2003 adaptation, these characters have lines that
Bernie
cut
between them. What the?
It's a banalized script versus the 2003 version, which clearly establishes character, belief, and personality through dialogue, and quite efficiently. It doesn't only do it in an equivalent amount of time, but it does it in the equivalent scene.
You, Peter Pan?
Were you expecting someone else?
We weren't expecting anyone at all.
Why is that so surprised?
There is a boy here who is to teach us to fly.
You offend reason, sir.
Jeremy Sumter's performance isn't leagues above Maloney's, but the script allows him to have more fun and to convey more fun, and for the kids around him to have more fun, which makes for a more vibrant and compelling introduction to all of these characters than we get in Peter Pan and Wendy. In fact,
In Peter Pan and Wendy. I stopped listening as I got distracted with the game. Maybe I could put some music on or something, I don't know.
Brothers than the entire 2023 film accomplishes. The plot itself hasn't yet deviated.
It almost sounds like
Especially remarkable about it thus far, Peter is introduced to the darling kids who help him catch his shadow, which here is mere nonsense, but which the 53 film used to tease Peter's imminent arrival.
You see, I found something that belongs to him.
Oh? And what's that?
His shadow.
The shadow in the original is evidence that the children are right in their beliefs before the audience sees that they are, which adds a little bit of mystery. Whereas in this film, Peter arrives in search of his shadow, a search that cannot make any sense to the children watching him conduct it because they have previously not encountered the shadow. Having found it and caught it, Wendy stitches it back onto him, accidentally pricking him with a needle and giving him a thimble for a kiss, and so on. In its essential beats, Peter Pan and Wendy is trying to remain faithful to source at this point, albeit only on the superficial level. This happened there, so something similar must happen here. In 53,
Badlands. Okay, I'm actually going the right way.
You know, you look exactly the way I thought you would. A little taller, perhaps, but then...
So in 2023, she says he's smaller than she envisioned.
Envisioned you as being...
Taller?
No, smaller, actually.
This Peter's outfit is clearly modelled on the 53 film too, whereas the 2003 film modelled it more closely on Barry's description of leaves and spiders' webs in the novelization and the plays. But in other small but important details, the 2023 film is devoid of meaning. In 53, the children aren't especially surprised to see Peter. They are overjoyed, which is different. They're not surprised because they always believed, they knew he existed, as they do in this film. But also because they had previously found his shadow, which in this film they had not. Tinkerbell in this film has the first interaction with Wendy, while in the 53 film she is very much and resentfully a sidekick helping Peter on a mission, and her first real look at Wendy comes from her hiding place inside a locked box, which clearly establishes the divide and the distance between them that becomes so important later, foreshadowing the jealousy that she will have to overcome. Both films do something to establish Wendy.
I don't know. I feel like maybe that's because of me. There's just so much. I have music on here, but like everything on my content just feels a little negative, or like I'm more like I'm looking for humor. Yeah, fuck it. Dun, 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 dun. These guys are 36. Can I even get in there? It don't look like I can even get in there to get the quest.
Taking in a remarkable range of people and places beginning with the letter R. Joining me tonight are riding the rails, it's Benjamin Zephaniah. Roving the roads, it's racing down the rapids, it's Sarah Pascoe. And running to the restroom, it's Alan Davis. Let's go round the horns. Benjamin goes. Josh goes. Sarah goes. Butch. And Alan goes. Right, let's start with a really riveting question. Who is this woman and what can she do?
She looks like my primary school teacher.
She's beautiful.
I was about to say, is he gonna keep chasing?
Great to meet you. Safe travels. How are you? Off with you.
I know. It's a common misconception. So she was a poster girl, apparently, for women's contribution to the war effort in the Second World War. That's what it is commonly thought. The poster does date, in fact, from 1943, but it was actually used only for 10 days in the American Westinghouse factories. But it was part of a series of 42 posters, and the idea was to halt union activity. It was to prevent strike action. Then what happened was the poster was rediscovered in the 1980s, and it was given a sort of new lease of life. The real Rosie the Riveter is based on somebody that you might
Wait.
have heard of. So that is the real Rosie the Riveter. Who do you think it looks like? I think it looks like Joe Brand. Nothing. But it is based on somebody famous. It's painted by Norman Rockwell. He based it on the prophet Isaiah from Michelangelo's Sistine Chapel. I know. You wouldn't think it.
That's rather cool, isn't it?
I know, it's absolutely marvellous.
So when you say we might recognise him if it's someone we know...
No, I said it was based on somebody famous. So
how famous is he?
Isaiah? Yeah.
I reckon they'd book him for this show.
Yeah. So Rosie is eating a ham sandwich. You can't quite see it in this picture, but her foot is crushing a copy of Mein Kampf. It was actually based on a 19-year-old telephone operator called Mary Doyle Keefe. She was paid $10, and she wasn't a riveter at all. But the image of actual Rosie the Riveter fell out of use due to copyright restrictions, and the gap in the market was sort of filled by the weekend.
I think I'm being baited. They're probably laughing their ass off.
The real name, Rosie the Riveter, came from a song, and I think we can have a listen to it. Keeps a sharp lookout for 7 times, sitting up there on the kiss of night.
Goldthorn. Blank.
More than a male. Makes you feel good about yourself, doesn't it? On the subject of QI panelist resemblances, I said how much I thought that poster looked like Joe Brand. In July 2018, there's a Twitter user called Sam Jordan, and he tweeted the following: "Going through some old photos, a welcome surprise." Is in fact Alan Davis. Wow. more specific, they're of Norwegian origin, since the Danes would never use such stupid words.
That spell is
You
ready.
tell me what they mean. Have a look at something else.
Crotching is obviously
Yes, what
what
is it?
Michael Jackson does.
Oh,
That's still
yes,
recharging.
a bit of a move, crotching.
Oh, right, I thought you were thinking of a very different thing.
You're thinking of flashback.
Can't cast that.
I saw something the other day online.
They good?
I don't know if I can talk about this because it's really dirty.
Darling, you've already gone down to Michael Jackson's crotch, haven't you?
No, it was these people who they're kind of pranksters, I guess, and they literally.
It's offering missions.
As a hobby, like a sort of niche hobby.
I guess they get lots of likes and views on YouTube and stuff like that.
Wow, I mean, I've been worrying about shaking hands, but
And you think that's flush bunking?
Sounds like a whiff swiddle to me.
yeah.
That spell is ready.
Well, I can tell you that biff squiggled means confused. Flush bunking actually means making no sense. Whiff swiddle is something that happens or moves very fast. And all of these words were invented by one person. Who do we think that might be?
A Norwegian person.
Well, of Norwegian origin.
Is it a footballer?
No, it is.
I'm out.
It was for the BFG.
Oh, Roald Dahl.
It is Roald Dahl. His parents were Norwegian immigrants. I mean, the Danes would never have anything so absurd. Here are a few Danish words, just to see if you can see what they mean.
Bag.
Yeah, not funny to me at all.
What, bag slag?
Bag Yes.
And is it still a slapper?
Dancing around the handbag.
Sandra, come away, you bastard.
I should buff myself.
It means backfire.
Isn't that what fart
Yes, that
is?
is fart, yeah.
I'm running out of water.
Word for speed, so you have to mind your fart. What about the other one? Anybody want to try?
Lucky pick.
Yeah, how do you pronounce that one?
Bull handler.
Bull handle.
No,
Sandra.
no, bull handler.
Oh, he's 35. Okay, yeah, that's fine. It's crazy to think, man. Like, I went from
So you go. I need to.
yeah, just how you climb and stuff at levels, like you know. Obviously, when I was 20, I wouldn't be able to deal with these mobs, but these mobs are nothing now, you know. It's just a crazy thing.
He was a spy briefly. He was a spy for the sort of covert operation set up by MI6 to spy in the United States. But he used his spy experiences to write screenplays. He wrote 2 Ian Fleming screenplays. He wrote the James Bond film You Only Live Twice.
Wow.
But he made up over 500 words in BFG.
Oh no, where did I go wrong? Oh.
Yes, which was?
It was like a kind
Why?
of bitter cucumber.
Yeah, with black and white
With
stripes.
little nubbles on the outside. I wish James
Oh,
could
okay,
be
cool.
one of those instead of having a martini.
Yes. Yes, walk further away from me. I do not wish to engage in combat with you. However, I do wish to seek this quest. Kitty cat.
One of the
Yeah,
dreams
kitty cat,
in
kitty
one of the
cat.
jars is that a book
Yeah,
sells so
kitty
well
cat.
that footballers on the pitch that everyone in the world is reading the book. And it kind of is like that, isn't it? Everyone's read the BFG.
Yo.
Not footballers.
Dahl, when he was buried, I love this, he was buried with his snooker cues, some very good burgundy, chocolates, HP pencils, and a power saw. Which I just think is...
What's he planning?
I don't know. What would you be buried with, Alan, if you choose the bits and pieces?
I was just going to say my children.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dad of the Year. Yeah, no, I don't think that's appropriate. What about you, Josh?
I completed a jigsaw for the first time this week.
2 pieces or one?
Yeah, how many?
I don't know how many pieces it was meant to
I
be.
can't cast that.
Yeah.
999 pieces.
Yeah.
So you didn't complete a jigsaw.
Yeah.
You failed at.
I didn't fail,
You
but
did, darling, because when you say
You did,
completed a
darling.
jigsaw, that is not what happened.
You didn't complete it.
Yeah, thank you.
all right. I want to be buried with the final piece of the jigsaw.
Anybody else? Got thoughts about it?
I just in case a big book. Because quite often there's big books.
Yeah, there's like nobody around here. Is it because this is more of a horde area? I don't feel like it. Maybe it's contested. I don't think it tells you if it's contested or not, simply for the fact that.
One of the exhibits is my first typewriter, and it's a typewriter that's almost 100 years old. Was a little
Wow, you've aged well.
I was a little kid, and this bloke looked at me and he went, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a poet." And he went, "Well, here's a typewriter." It's a beautiful piece, and
Talk to me. Be good. Watch, get her back. Off with you.
Hell yeah.
Get her back. Be good.
Oh, I missed something. Supply crates.
Museum's going to be empty. What else have they got?
Yeah.
They've got Jasper Carrot's stool.
Oh, that's gone off by now, surely.
Not his stool.
I mean, sweet of him to offer it, but...
this is the weirdest show I've ever been on.
I met Jasper Carrot and I asked him about why he's called Jasper Carrot, and he said it's because his real name is Davis. And it's so boring.
Let me think. Okay, I need to head over here. I just hit. Oh, I'm 30. Wait, I'm 39? I think I did get my spells. And if I didn't, it's fine. I don't really feel like a difference.
I know what they didn't do.
What did they not
Well, I've seen this program before.
Yeah.
They didn't build roads.
No, they really did.
They did.
Turn it up a little bit for my own.
Life of Brian, they ask, all right, but apart from, you know, the sanitation, the medicine, education, wine, public order, irrigation, roads, a fresh water system, and public health, what have the Romans ever done for us? In fact, most of those items on the list already existed. They were improved upon rather than invented by the Romans. So they didn't invent roads, but they did certainly make them.
Did they invent aqueducts?
No, they did not invent aqueducts either. They were used by the Egyptians and the Babylonians for hundreds of years before the Romans.
Underfloor heating?
I mean, again, there is underfloor heating in other parts of the world. Yes, I'm afraid so.
Pasta.
Pasta. They invented pasta. Absolutely.
Pasta.
No, all sorts of things that we think. So, for example, straight roads is one of the things that we think, but we know straight roads existed in Ireland, which the Romans didn't even reach. They didn't even invent paved roads. The world's oldest paved road, which this is part of.
Looks like one of Josh's puzzles.
It's probably 4,500 years ago that this road was laid down. It's in Egypt, so it was laid down in order to build the monuments at Giza.
I'm out of range.
Along the Nile. Who said aqueducts? Who said aqueducts?
I did.
You did,
Because
yeah.
that's what I remember from learning the first things we learned about Romans at school. Aqueducts were pretty big, and I thought I was going to see more of them in my life, in the way that they were bigged up. Like before then, water couldn't even go over bridges.
Yeah, this one is in Nîmes in France.
What happened there? So they didn't go high enough the first time?
And then where is the water then?
It's down below in the river.
So on that very top of the bridge?
Yeah, very top of the bridge. In the 7th century BC, the Assyrian king built one to bring water all the way from the nearby mountains to his palace in Nineveh. So lots of aqueducts before the Romans. There is something the Romans did give us, which is the Wicker Man. So the very first evidence that we have of the Wicker Man style of pagan sacrifice comes from Julius Caesar. He claimed that the Druids burned people alive inside wicker cages. The thing is, he's thought to have invented it because he wanted to show how barbaric everybody was in Britain. Although maybe the Wicker Man has not, we have no evidence of it because
they took it apart to make some cool chairs in the 80s.
Does anybody want to see a Peter Rabbit Wicker Man?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay,
Always.
well. So, in 2016, they made a 40-foot, there it is, straw statue of Peter Rabbit. It was created to celebrate the 150th anniversary of
It's
Beatrix.
full of rabbits.
Well, it was set alight by arsonists. Or Mr. McGregor, which is the one I'm voting for. We had a picture of it on fire, but I couldn't bear to show it.
Show it.
No.
How are ya?
No. It's too, no.
Off with you. Safe travels. Off with you.
You want to see the burning rabbit?
What is wrong with you?
You want to see the burning rabbit, don't you? Everyone's like, yeah!
Peter Rabbit on fire. It's not happening.
Yeah. And so was it supposed to...
They invented bound books.
Oh.
So it wasn't until the Romans that it was thought a good idea to put lots of pieces of paper into some leather. Up until then, it had been scrolls entirely. So bound books we owe to the Romans, and Latin, obviously. But the welfare, the idea of welfare is a Roman concept. So they had something a bit like a sort of corn dole. So if the poor were really suffering, they would give out and look after the needy. And that is a concept that hadn't existed before.
I think there are some African scholars that would.
Sorry.
Villages used to share, and they would never let anybody go poor. There's a Jamaican word called partner. It's like partner, where people put money into a kitty in the village, and it's to make sure that no one goes poor.
I think there's a serious issue in history that probably a lot of that stuff that happened was not written down, and so it has been lost.
Well, you know, this. I talk about what I teach at university, but I teach the oral tradition. So a lot of it is handed down to mouth. And a lot of Western scholarship just missed it because it wasn't written down. In West Africa, they used to have this thing called Anansi stories. Anansis was this kind of trickster spider that would always get in trouble and somehow work his way out of it. And there was always a little bit of wisdom left for you to learn from, especially for children. And I mean, these have been going for hundreds and hundreds of years. They went to the Caribbean. And then I think it was in the mid-90s, a British publisher published them. And it's upset a lot of people.
Hooah!
To move and change with the time, but now you've set him in.
I mean, it does sound hordish.
And this is the point, you know, Anansi now, if you were telling an Anansi story to make the children wiser, it would involve the internet or whatever is going on in the zeitgeist.
And keep it moving along.
Yes.
Yeah. So that was the Romans, but what about the Romanians? What did they ever do for us? Interesting. Yeah.
Is it to do with agriculture?
Agriculture.
Good at it. Vampires.
Is it something like a feudal system? Is it something about kind of how people divided?
What's he going to get out of his trousers there? What's he reaching for?
You know what he's going to get out of his
You're not going to do that here.
I'm specifically talking about Transylvania.
Oh,
Vampires.
About 2 minutes ago.
Did you?
Never before realised that was sentient.
Oh, yeah.
It's an actual person.
It's the nature of AI over years. It's learned a constant back and forth. Trouble with this brain is that they're mainly off.
So not vampires, myths about undead beings who come out at night and gorge on the blood of the living. I mean, that's been around in almost every single culture from millennia. So it isn't. I can tell you, it begins with the edict of Turda.
I'm further away from the answer now.
Turda, and it comes. I can tell you, there's a town called Turda, which is something to snig at.
It's called Turner. Yeah, it's twinned with Pua.
It's one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's a tiny Romanian town in Transylvania. It is stunning.
Is it Turda or is it Ta-da?
That spell isn't ready.
In a way, it was kind of ta-da because nobody had ever thought of this before. They invented religious tolerance. It never really existed before. So in most of medieval Europe, you absolutely had to agree with the church. And then in 1556, there was a student, a Polish student, who said, I don't understand why we all have to believe in the Trinity. I would prefer to believe just in God. And this started a new religion called Unitarianism. And the world's only Unitarian king, King Janos II, he set forth this edict of Turda, and it stated that a preacher may preach the gospel by his own personal conception at any place if that community is willing to accept him, or if it isn't, no one should force him just because their soul is not satisfied with him. It's amazing that was a revolutionary thing. That was in 1568, that you can believe what you like was absolutely revolutionary. Here's my other favourite thing that Romania gave the world, December 2014, the world's longest ever sausage. It measured 38.99 miles. I know, yeah, it holds the Guinness World Record. I don't know why we went back to him with his...
That's still recharging.
I'd like to see the beginning of the world's longest sausage.
Wait a minute. Where are you? Stand up. Who said yes? Yes. What's your name? Hello, Dave. What do you hold the record for? Yes, ask Dave a question.
Did all the pizzas get eaten? Okay, now I'm clapping.
You were a second away from saying it's just a long line of cheesy dough.
Yeah. But the long sausage was also given out and local charities benefited.
Okay.
The Romanians gave us religious tolerance and the world's biggest sausage. Who would be the worst person to borrow a glove from?
O.J. Simpson?
The guy that gave me a strip search at Heathrow Airport, so wouldn't want to borrow a glove from him.
Did you do the whole? I don't know why I'm doing
Really?
that. I imagine there's not that much movement in it.
You're not changing a light bulb up there.
I was coming from a particular part of the world which is known as a source of narcotics, and I looked suspicious.
Was it Kensington?
And they gave me a strip search.
That's awful.
Yeah.
What did they find?
2 kilos of cocaine, but that's not the point.
They found the world's longest sausage.
I found nothing. I am innocent. I'm a good boy. I haven't
Quite
broke the law for months.
A while. So I'm going to give you a clue. The worst person to borrow a glove from, he was Russian, he was romantic.
Oh.
His name begins with
Rasputin. That was a trick of the highest order, Sandy.
That's so much fun. Rachmaninoff.
She is vibing with it.
Huge hands. You should have keyboards.
Yeah.
So if you have a look at the keyboards, he could span 12 keys. So that is Rachmaninoff's hand that you have there. So put it up against your hand. He can span 12 notes. How many can you span with a single hand?
Oh, I got really smart.
I'm on 10.
You can do 10.
9, just about.
Just about 9. And Sarah, what about you? Just using all 5 fingers.
15.
So there is an argument that some of the virtuoso pieces on piano are inherently sexist because women simply can't manage. The thing about him that makes me so angry about the world in a way is that his very first symphony, he was so severely criticised by a man called César Cui that he didn't actually compose again for 4 years. It put him in such a depression.
Yeah, it's like my first Edinburgh.
Should never Google your own name.
But actually, that's an important life lesson, is that the biggest hurdle is that some people won't like what you do, and it mustn't.
It's true, man.
He's a really good example of that. So there is an issue for women playing piano pieces because if you want to play large chords and so on, you really need a span of at least 8.5 inches. That eliminates 24% of men, 87% of women. But there's very few women virtuosos together. And it's partly to do with the span of the hand. The world record for biggest hands held by an American, Robert Pershing Wadlow. This is hugely astonishing, isn't it? His hands measured 12.75 inches, so 32.
Holy shit.
The wrist to the top of the finger. He's also the tallest man on record.
I was just going to say, is it to scale?
Yeah, he was 8 foot 11 inches. I mean, he was astonishing. You sometimes see a model of him outside the Ripley Knott Museum. And really sadly died quite young. He was still growing by the time he died. And his
Oh, the world's tallest man, yeah.
and he got an infection and he died. It's really sad. There is one woman who is said to have had absolutely huge hands, and it's George Edwards, aka Mary Ann Evans. And when she died, so we're talking about 1880, the family were dismayed that a neighbour told an anecdote about her having a giant right hand. And the neighbour said she used to show it with some pride.
I could honestly see why people wouldn't want to play level out here.
And she had to turn the churn to make the
Like, this is crazy. I have to. There's not enough of these. If it was like, even if there was another person here with me.
They would include a rebuttal of the story that she had
All right, nice. That could have very well, and not all of them drop one either, which is the other thing too. So like, there's not many of them, and they don't all drop one of those items I had to pick up. I wasn't paying attention.
Why don't we all go?
Yeah, let's all go.
Do you think they have a salad bar with bacon bits?
You're asking the wrong team.
Oh yes, the vegans. Do you think they've got a salad bar?
Vegetarian.
Am I the only?
You're the only pig eater at the table. You're the only one with blood on your hands.
Your tiny hands.
I know. Am I the meat in the sandwich?
You are.
You know what they say about people with big hands, big spans. Right, let's put the hands away. How would you rate your chances in a Chihuahua race?
I'd beat the shit out of them.
What can I do for you? See you soon.
They're small and nippy. I mean, it depends how long the distance is, because I feel like.
Watch your back.
Where I have problems is like long distance. If there's any like Kenyan chihuahuas.
Well, it is long distance that we are, in fact, talking about. We are talking about the place Chihuahua. So there is a tribe, the Raramuri tribe in Chihuahua, Mexico. They are brilliant, brilliant long-distance runners. And in 2017, a woman called Maria Lorena Ramirez, she beat 500 other female runners to win a 50K ultra marathon dressed like this. She was wearing a long skirt, she was wearing sandals, she had no running gear. You can see she's holding a sort of baseball cap and a bottle of water. That was it. And she beat all 500 other runners in this race.
What were they wearing?
Running
Diving
gear.
bells?
Yeah, no. And in 2016, she came second in a 100K race in similar sort of racing.
Why is she not in the Olympic Games?
Well, this particular tribe are built to do endurance and not speed, and so marathons are actually too short for them to
They're just warming up.
They're really just getting themselves going. Wow. So the sandals, they're a traditional Mexican sandal. They're called a huaraches, and they're surprisingly good running shoes because they allow the foot to splay and move rather naturally. They are infinitely adjustable because they have this multi-strap system and they're extremely durable.
No room for a swoosh on there, though.
No, you're not going to swoosh on there. But there's about 50 to 70,000 people in this tribe, and they live in dispersed communities, so they do have to communicate by running very long distances. They can run 270 kilometers non-stop. They can comfortably cover 700 kilometers in a few days. And their secret weapon is that before they start running, they drink beer. I mean,
is that where I've been going wrong?
Yes. Corn beer, Tesquino, it is sacred amongst the Raramuri. And they use these running skills not just to go and connect with people, but to hunt wild turkey. So you want to get a wild turkey, you chase the birds for hours. The birds can't fly for very long, so they repeatedly have to take off and land. It's very energy consuming, and eventually the turkey goes, okay, you got me.
Again, I'd say wrong crowd.
Yeah.
They exhaust hours of their time hunting down a single turkey. That's crazy.
Apparently it only works if the doctor drinks.
You got my attention. Off with you. See you soon. Safe travels. Watch your back. What's on your mind?
Gets rid of the large soul and just leaves the little soul, and that's why we're more like children when we've had a drink. I think that's quite nice.
That's wonderful.
I've never drank. I drank once. One night at a party.
Oh right, yeah.
I'm gonna try a drink.
They're immune.
And I remember walking into this room.
Fucking gotta kill rock guys. This is gonna be tough.
I thought I fell asleep. And I did all kinds of things. I tried to write fell back on the settee.
Well, alright. It's not as bad because I mean, these guys are kind of tough. Oh, they're 42. They're well above my means. Wait, how am I doing this?
She looked like she'd been in the ring with Muhammad Ali.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to really do it effectively. And now that I consider the circumstance. Oh. Okay, let's try this.
I don't have enough energy.
Oh, wow, I wish I had that.
Yeah, I don't think this is any better.
Right, moving on. What could this man do in 28 seconds? He's a silly laughter. Oh, sniggering at the back of the class. He's Scottish. His name was Robert Lister. 19th century surgeon. He could amputate a leg in 28 seconds.
That's too quick. Tie all the veins together.
Oh, you got to finish the job.
Yeah, you got to finish it off.
These are some tough mobs, my dudes.
So, I think in those days, theatres were called that for a reason.
Just don't have a. It wouldn't be that big of an issue if I could use more abilities, but I can't. That's what makes them hard. I only get 2 skills.
So you can see his assistant is holding, because there's lots of spectators around.
Two spherical objects. Smart to put these back on.
I'm thinking I might get something here that's gonna help me with these mobs at 40, so maybe I go take a gander at something else.
He managed to sever 3 of his assistant's
Excuse me.
fingers, and as he brought it back up, he slashed the cloak of a spectator. The patient and the assistant both died later of gangrene. Their wounds became infected, and the story is that the spectator died of fright because he thought he had been stabbed. It is the only operation on record with a 300% mortality rate.
Did he lose his license?
No, darling, people queued up to see him. They absolutely did. Because his mortality rate was 1 in 7. And
1 in 7?
Well, the average was 1 in 4. So, you know, people
Before anaesthetic, doctors used to have a brandy before operations because it was actually horrific. It was awful cutting into people who were awake. So they would have a couple of brandies. And
no, I don't think he thought it was awful. He wore blood and spattered clothes, and people didn't know about sterilization. People thought it meant he was experienced. And there was sawdust on the floor to soak it up, and there were sometimes a flautist would come into the bay. I mean, it was a proper good night out. That's why operating rooms are still called theatres today.
Because they had the same architects. People like Inigo Jones built theatres for plays and theatres for people to watch operations because they were entertainment. It was the same genre.
When was that photograph taken?
This is Charing Cross Hospital in 1901.
Looks like there's a Caribbean nurse there.
Yeah.
I mean, back then.
It's a nice addition.
Keep my eyes out, cause like Goldthorn's really, Goldthorn sells for a lot, and you don't get seems to be a lot of it. So if I see some, well, I'm in a zone now for Herbalife. Oh shoot! Speaking of, okay, I'm oh Herb, yeah. Oh yeah, I already upgraded, so we're good.
Yeah. So he didn't notice he was having the wrong operation until it was too late.
Oh, he's over here. Oh, I can sell at least. Oopsies.
I'd take it.
What was the biggest revelation in Bridget Hitler's?
Whoa, you. Whoa. Oh, okay.
Hold on, is there really somebody called Bridget Hitler?
Yes.
You don't really hear much about any other Hitlers.
Yeah, I thought that.
Just change your name to Carrot. It's much easier.
Ah, he's like you little tiny one. He's like the one they look out for and cast spells. It's like almost like a little story. The gang's got their little buddy.
The time of recording.
But there was really a Bridget Hitler. She was married to Hitler's half-brother, Louis, in 1910, and they lived in Liverpool.
Do I have a deal for you?
Holy smoly.
Be good.
Wrote about her life with Hitler's
Let me take this is a good break for a second. Let me go.
Hitler came and stayed with academics dispute this, I have to tell you. But the thing that she revealed, which I really love, is that if Hitler won the war, what he wanted to do was to take Rochdale Town Hall, brick by brick, back to Germany. That was yes,
And that's what it was all about.
yeah.
Why Rochdale?
Well, it is very beautiful.
It does look beautiful.
And the Luftwaffe did use it as a landmark, so it was saved during the war. Ironically, the Luftwaffe destroyed Bridget Hitler's house.
Maybe Adolf Hitler didn't have a nice time when he stayed with her.
Yeah.
Let's go for Bridget's house. It's the third one from the end.
It is the most fantastic Victorian Gothic architecture. It contains a toilet that has never been used because it was built for Queen Victoria, and as she didn't use it, nobody else has either.
They definitely have, sadly. Yeah.
Of course they have. Whoever's got the key.
Yeah. But the idea of moving, you could have done this. You could have taken Rochdale Town Hall down and moved it to Germany. There are lots of historic examples of big buildings being moved. Anybody remember when London Bridge was moved? Anybody know where it went?
United States.
1976 was put up for auction and was won by a man called Robert McCulloch, and he to Arizona. It is now the second largest tourist attraction in Arizona after the Grand Canyon. Anyway, he paid $2.5 million for it, and it has certainly paid itself back. And he sold lots of residential property on the back of it and all that kind of thing. And the other one is Rosa Parks' house. So Rosa Parks famously
on the bus
refused to give up her seat on the bus. That was in December the 1st, 1955. She later
Oops.
moved to
Sorry about that.
Detroit to live with her brother. And that house, which was a tiny house,
They lifted it on a huge bunch of balloons.
Oh, it's in Berlin. I know. Strangest thing. It was an artist called Ryan Mendoza. They were going to demolish it, and he couldn't bear it, so he bought it and he rebuilt it in Berlin. And he does sort of sound performances. You can't go in it, apparently. It's not safe.
Is it a tourist attraction?
Well, he does sort of. He's a performance artist, so he does performances in and around it.
The strangest tourist attraction I've ever been to was Hotel Lorraine, or Lorraine Hotel. It's a hotel where Martin Luther King was shot. And I think they don't do this now, but when I was there, you could stand on the balcony where Martin Luther King was shot, and they literally had his footprint, so you could stand in there.
Wow.
And a laser would shoot you.
No!
As if you would be shot just like Martin Luther King was shot.
There's amount of time, like in for the anniversary of the Titanic, to go full circle, there was a theme park ride that opened in Japan of the Titanic sinking.
Having a little ice cream.
There's an amount of time where it becomes a historical fact and kind of empathy disappears.
But I think it's really weird now that you have tourist attractions and pubs and things called Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. Well, that again, there's a whole cultural conversation now. It's so much more about the women. Number one, poverty in London, the women who were in danger, sex work at the time, the history of London. And it isn't just about a
There's a new
psychopathic
biography
killer.
recently released, isn't
It's
it?
about the 5 women.
About the
Yeah.
victims.
No, it is very, very good. And now we've roamed way off course and right into the twilight zone of general ignorance. Fingers on buzzers, please. Which is the British lake with the greatest deepness? I'm going to give you a hint.
Yeah.
Its depth is absolutely monstrous.
Oh.
Yeah.
Windermere.
Good playing of the game.
Extra point for playing the game well. So it is not. It's not.
Loch Ness.
It's not Loch
I'm
Ness.
getting the hang of this.
The deepest lake in the UK is Scotland's Lake Moray. It is 310 metres deep. Loch Ness is 247 and a half. There is, however, in Loch Moray, a cryptozoological monster that rivals the Loch Ness monster. It's called Morag, which is so cute.
Interesting.
It was last spotted in 2013. And the new theory about Loch Ness, actually, because there was a team of researchers from New Zealand in 2019 and they analysed water samples. They think there may be several giant eels that are living in the lake. Loch Ness gets its name from an old Scottish legend that featured the Gaelic lines, "Ta Loch Nessan, the Loch Nessan," just means there's a loch now, there's a loch now. Who knows? Loch Moray is deeper than Loch Ness and has its own monster to boot. Here's someone who's absolutely full of herself, but where was this doll invented?
Oh.
Yes, Josh.
Minsk.
Good.
That was weird.
Yeah, really specific. It's specific and it's wrong.
Oh, not me.
But we hadn't thought of it. They're called matryoshki, but it started its life in China. So more than 1,000 years ago, and then to Japan. But then in the 19th century, a Moscow workshop called Children's Upbringing took this idea and they created their own versions of these nesting dolls.
I've got one at home.
Yeah.
And it's got me, and then my wife, and then my 3 children. And the likenesses of everybody are pretty good, apart from me. I look a bit ridiculous.
We've done this one, which we think looks like you. Got the shirt on. Got the shirt on.
Good, yeah.
And then if we open it up inside, let's see if I can get them all out. So then we've got Benjamin, and then we've got.
We all live in Alan.
We've got
And where's Josh?
Josh.
Unbelievable.
There you are. And even smaller, even smaller
All right.
than Josh.
That was actually a nice little boost. That was good.
Inside. And what's
Who's
inside?
inside you?
Oh, it's a blue whale.
Keep it real.
Oops, my bad.
I got the best deals anywhere.
Gotta
Have a
bring
good
stuff
one.
to him.
Keep it real.
Bring 9 pearls.
Be good. Have a good one.
Bring buzzard wing. Oh, so this is
Keep
this
it
hunting
real.
area.
Potential customer.
What is the thing that classifies a rainforest?
The amount of rainfall.
The rain, yeah, absolutely. So the largest one is in Alaska. It's the Tungas National Forest. It covers 17 million acres. It is breathtaking. But you also find them in Australia, in Japan, in Iceland.
See, this is like lower tier stuff. In the raptor egg, I can't use because I have to use a.
It's about 6% of the Earth's land surface area, but it's amazing because it's home to 50% of the species of flora and fauna. The Amazon alone is home to 10% of all species.
Small eggs, yeah.
Which is one of my favorite things, the South American Goliath bird-eater spider. It's the size of a puppy.
Oh, no, thank you.
Each of its legs is 1 foot long.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, you've ruined my dreams. Like, that is, you like
You
that,
wouldn't
Dan?
show us a rabbit on
Hurry
fire.
back!
I have got a friend who went to the world's largest rainforest, so if you want to know what it's like, Alaska. Okay, we've run out of time. As our voyage draws to a close, let's take a look at the range of scores. In last place tonight, rambling in the Rotherham rain with
Got like hard farming.
It's Sarah!
Belgium. So I gotta head up to the north.
In 4th place with -19.
Lower level stuff. I'll tell you what, this would be a really nice background show if it wasn't for that little buzzer sound. Bum 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 bum. Got all the soft notes. I know it does it intentionally.
Tonight, we're tiptoeing through our quiet episode. Pray silence for the tight-lipped
I'm following the tracks of this hardcore farmer.
Sarah Basco,
Yeah, there he is.
muffled Andrew Maxwell, and the unspeakable Alan Davis.
Oh, is he not?
And their buzzers are all appropriately quiet. Jimmy goes. Quiet! Sarah goes. Quiet! Andrew goes. Will you be quiet? And Alan goes.
Oh, do shut up.
That was very polite, wasn't it, really? Oh, do shut up. Now, how long before a silence becomes awkward?
Oldman. Oh, this is literally the area around it? Like, wait, what? What level is this? 36? Plus 4 shattered.
Okay, it's about now, I think.
Can I do Oldman? Excuse me.
I think it's really awkward when you can
I can. 36.
especially if it's a gig.
Yeah.
That's always a sign. Now, this isn't going my way.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
I think comedy is quite a lot like sex. That if they haven't made a noise for a while, change what you're doing.
Oh, there's already a healer.
About parenting as well, actually.
Yeah. Oh. 2011, the University of Groningen, which is in Netherlands, discovered that a pause
I don't know.
becomes awkward after 4 seconds. Oh. And after that, people start to feel anxious, they feel
This might be a little difficult, but we'll try.
It's an American research company called the Love Lab, and they basically looked at
Should be fine, actually.
couples over the years, and they came up
These
with
are lower level than I am.
happiness signs with someone, with your partner, and they don't go what? Then it takes like 7 good things to make up for that one bad thing, because people feel so rejected by that.
It's exactly that. It's about feeling rejected, because the reason that we like good
I
conversations,
can't cast that yet.
good about ourselves.
We get dopamine, don't we? Like teenage girls who stay on the phone for hours and hours have really, really high levels of dopamine. Like they've like completed a PhD.
I always think, like, as comedians, we're like drug dealers. The drug we deal is endorphins, and you've already got the molecule. We'll just help you release them.
It's never happened.
No.
We have yet to meet the awkward moment. I suppose after about 4 seconds of silence, you'd bring in a wink at least.
Yeah. To keep things moving along.
Or you know yourself.
Yeah. And a bit of pointing, maybe. You know?
Oh, yeah. There he is over there.
It's good, those phrases that kind of break the silence that don't really mean anything. Like when I spend a lot of time in Ireland, and it's always fair play to you. Yeah. Doesn't mean anything.
Well, it means fair play to you.
Let's still be drugs.
I had a really silent moment being an old Irishman. It was really raining hard outside. It was just me and him alone. And I tried to make conversation. I went,
I don't have a target.
good weather for ducks.
You ever have that moment where your butt just randomly starts to itch? You're just like, whoa. Oh, that feels better.
Bad weather for ducks.
Butt itch completed. Okay, I want to get in there to grab that these quests before I do too much.
Cultures have a different attitude. So the Japanese have a concept of something called harage, and basically means belly talk. And the idea is that you use a prolonged silence in business negotiations. And they're content with an average silence of about 8.2
Okay.
seconds. So twice
I mean,
as long as we are. So
like-
I think it's very much a cultural attitude to it.
Maybe that's why, especially in dating, you do feel the silence a lot because usually the instinct is it's awful. A couple of bottles of wine and 2 years later, there you go.
Let's fire flat.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that the theory? When you look at someone, you either want to kill them or you want to.
Yeah, if you're looking someone directly in the eye, it's either kind of sexual or aggressive after about 3 seconds. It's one or the other. You can't. It's not neutral, Alan.
That's sexual.
So wait, he's supposed to be outside?
How about if I do it? Just aggressive.
What does it count when you're on the other end of the phone and you're negotiating and then
Was-
you don't say anything? You put
Lost my shield because of fire.
Yeah, well.
and they get back the other person's
It seems like
Throw an argument in your favour. I had a friend of mine.
common pathing.
A lot of negotiating, and he had a pronounced stutter. And somebody would say, "I'd offer you 3,000," and he would go, and they'd go, "Okay, 4." And he said, "I was going to say fine."
I've got a friend that's whenever she changes jobs, they always go with the offer for the new job. And she said the trick is you don't.
Hammer Gaz.
You just get the email and you write back. You write, "I'm very disappointed."
He's trying to help. Oh, I gotta find Oldham itself. Okay. I gotta go into the dungeon.
They always come back with a better offer.
And then the hidden chamber is also a dungeon.
And I go in the other room and laugh. But I was thinking about the dopamine thing that you said. You know, one of the things that we now know is that particularly talking about ourselves triggers these neural rewards in the brain.
Talking about yourself?
Talking about yourself, and the subjects
Gotta get
were
this
in
man's
study
treasure.
were even offered money, and they turned them down in order to carry on talking about themselves. And apparently, they still felt good, even if they knew nobody was listening.
What talking to yourself is like talking to yourself in the comedy in the bathroom. Sometimes my kids walk past and they go, "Who are you talking to?"
What do you talk about in the bathroom?
How to get out.
Okay, that's not how to get to him.
Found you can't even pay us to shut up about us.
There's Oldham.
What's the one sound you really can't ignore?
Oh, baby's crying.
I think that is true for. Is it true for boys?
I was going to say Wu-Tang Clan.
You know what? I might as well queue up for Alderman.
Wu-Tang Clan, you know.
Method Man. RZA, Method Man, Ghostface Killer.
You know Ghostface Killer, Sandy.
Keep going till we get to Gangnam Style.
Gangnam Style, I knew you from somewhere.
I would say our fridge makes a noise if you leave the door open.
I never hear the fridge until the noise stops.
That sounds like a trailer for a horror film.
Yeah. Silence of the fridge. Yeah.
Everything I own warns me all the time. I used to have a microwave. When it stopped, it went ping. And now it goes beep, 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 beep,
Is it
beep, beep,
reversing?
beep, 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 beep. but it keeps reversing forevermore, until there's a power cut.
Do you think that people making white goods for your house have seen you on this show?
My car bleeps. If I'm in reverse, it bleeps. And if I'm near something at the back, it bleeps. It does a different bleep if I'm near something at the front.
Who's letting you drive?
Bleep. And then on top of that, my wife's next to me going, this car's making too much noise. And all the kids going, oh, what's all this bleeping?
I mean, it would be, I don't know, I don't have the resources to, like, effectively do this mission, storm racing through the mobs. Oh god, he might actually see me. Okay, nice. Okay, so I gotta go through here. Okay, this seems right.
I wasn't talking about any of those things.
This, what level are these? 37? Ooh.
Technically, we are talking about the one sound a child cannot repeat.
Oh, ice cream van.
No.
Shit.
It's the sound of a woman's voice, is what we now know. So children tend to sleep through fire alarms and so on. They tend to sleep through them. It's partly because they sleep more deeply.
I read about this, so they were going to have a smoke alarm.
Whoa. Whoa.
Absolutely right. There is a really strong response to a maternal voice, and that is why there's going to be a new kind of smoke alarm with a female voice. So they've been testing them. I don't know if this would.
This go bad real fast.
Voice going, wake up, the house is on fire.
You want a bit more urgency.
I think that might be better than the alternate. My mother was an incredibly sweary woman, and I think if she'd recorded a fire alarm, it would have been just filth. It would have been like a pirate was doing it.
Dundee University, working with Derbyshire Fire and Rescue, they tested smoke alarms in 2017 on sleeping children, and it is astonishing the difference. The woman's voice will wake your child up 86 to 91% of the time, whereas a tone alarm just over 50%. Apparently, incorporating your child's name into the recording makes no difference whatsoever. Call a little girl Frank, they wouldn't make any difference.
I think if you use your child's name, that's when they ignore you.
Yes, that is.
So you hear their name and think, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Why that thing when they use your full name? If I was ever referred to as James, I'm in.
Oh, dang it. Where is it?
What are your middle name?
There it is.
Anthony Patrick.
Did they sometimes
Oh,
use the
shit.
lot? Then you're really in the shit.
I think that's called a judge. You're in court. James Anthony Patrick Carr.
That's
You are a habitual criminal.
Let's still be charges. Can't catch that.
No signs of remorse.
So children can ignore these alarms. It's not unique to humans. So they discovered that mice also have a noise function in their brain. What noise might mice want to cancel out?
Other mice?
Well, that's sort of, yes, heading in the right direction.
Other mice having sex. Because they apparently do it all the time.
Really? Is it very loud?
I have no idea of the volume. I'm not there creepy outside the nest.
No, it's the sound of their own footsteps. Because shouldn't it be very annoying?
I think you're thinking of the little mouse with clogs on.
I think that's a nice sound.
Yeah, but if you were a mouse and you're very close to that sound, then
Yeah,
you might hear predators. So they actually cancel out the sound of their own.
Ooh.
Have you seen the new tinnitus app?
Sorry?
So if you have like a ringing in your ears constantly, so what it does is it basically you listen to it and you get exactly the same ringing in your ears on the phone.
Right.
And you listen to this thing and then you practice turning on and off the phone, and eventually your brain learns to turn off the tinnitus in your own head.
If that is true, that is the most brilliant thing.
It's genius, yeah.
Actually, there is a phenomenon where people can hear things which are not there, and that is called musical ear syndrome, and that's when you hear music that isn't there. And it's thought it's the brain trying to compensate for sensory deprivation. So Robert Schumann, the great German composer, he reportedly heard entire symphonies in his head, from which he did originally draw inspiration, but eventually he was released from his job as conductor in 1851 because he couldn't distinguish the music in his head and the music that he was conducting, which if you're a conductor, not going to go as well.
Isn't there a story about Paul McCartney in Yesterday? That he was humming yesterday, it came to him in a dream, and he was humming it for like 3 days, going, who wrote this?
And then it was suddenly...
And it was just like, no, it just came to him fully formed in a dream.
Oh my God.
I was in a shop and I realised that I wasn't sure how long I've been doing it, that I was humming the theme tune to Jonathan Creek.
waiting to be recognised.
What a way to draw attention to yourself.
How loud is the hum? How loud
Really
is
loud.
Well, Schumann was quite mad by the end. He just heard one note. It was an A. Just heard a single sort of tortured.
He left the fridge open.
Do you know, this is one of those things where people become kind of human. Unfortunately, he did end up used to be called a lunatic asylum. And his wife Clara then had 7 children. She got hold of their friend Brahms, and Brahms used to go round and do childcare instead of performance. Did quite a lot of love advice, to be fair.
Isn't that the thing with Van Gogh and Paul Gauguin?
Yeah.
That Van Gogh's really famous.
That's still recharging.
Sunflowers. He painted them.
I can't cast that yet.
For Paul to come and stay. He was despair living in Southern France. And Paul Gauguin came to stay.
Well, my elder told me it is entirely true, so that's a very good fact. You get an extra point. Sometimes our brains block out sound that is there. Thank you very much, Alan. I picked it up myself. What's the most... What's the most dangerous thing to do in bed?
Tell the truth.
Anybody else?
Reverse cowgirl.
They had that locked and loaded?
There was some suggestion you might say that, Alan. Is it a particular favourite?
Yeah, how did they know?
So we're looking at the past. We're looking at particularly the Victorian era, so something like Victorian time.
They've had candles and things to light themselves to bed.
Yep.
Gas lamps and things.
Candles are good.
Oh, candles.
Why would you take a candle?
To read?
To read, yeah, reading. The Silent Killer. Not thought to be a good thing at all because burning has drifted off.
Yeah.
There's a most fantastic summary of fires in London from 1833 to 1866. So in those days, all fires were dealt with by the fire insurance company, and they kept meticulous records. So here's a quick snapshot of 19th century London life. One death from a fire caused by a jackdaw. No details provided. That's it. Don't know what that was. Another caused by a monkey. 2 attributed to smoking in bed. 3 to sewing in bed. Anybody? Yeah. 12 to lightning. But the figure that tops all of these is 34 lethal fires caused by reading in bed. In fact, exactly equal by the number of fires started by cats.
Has anyone ever actually damaged their eyes reading by torchlight?
I don't know, because it used to be a thing, didn't it, when you were a
Told
child?
that
As a child,
every
yeah.
night of my childhood. You damage your eyes.
Yeah, I think it's a myth. now.
Under the cupboard.
Yeah, I used to read the talk as well, neither of us had glasses.
Who's speaking?
It's your fire alarm.
When I was at university, there were 2 students who wanted to go off grid.
Oh, yeah.
They wouldn't even wear shoes for Sunday school. They wouldn't have electricity or gas or newspaper for the new paper, candles, and they knocked a candle over in the toilet and burnt the house down. Sad. It was a beautiful old house on the beach in Whitstable, but it was funny.
Maybe it wasn't their fault, maybe it was spontaneous combustion.
Or a jackdaw.
Yeah. 1,255 fires attributed to spontaneous combustion. You'd think the Victorians were terrified.
Well, I was obsessed with that growing up, the idea that the fat was like wax, and it's like the wick was inside, and that's why it was so quick. But it's kind of stopped happening since the internet, because there would be a video of it now. Like someone with their phone would have gone, oh, Nana's burning.
But various examples over the years. Lord Walsingham found burnt to a crisp in his bedroom in 1831. But it is probably because he was reading in bed.
So that's the bottom of it, but
That's it, that's it. But reading in particular for women was regarded as dangerous. So women reading in solitude, it gave them rebellious, fantastical ideas. It was novels specifically.
Yeah.
That spell isn't ready
His
yet.
novels were, third person that might make people too empathetic
Yeah.
and thus weaken the nation.
Another common hazard in the 1800s was Christmas trees. Now, I dispute this. In those days, Christmas trees were lit with real candles. Now, I am Danish. For the last 60 years, I've had Christmas lit with real candles, and so far, not a flicker of a fire. Just don't set the tree on fire. It's not complicated, but apparently it was so great a risk in this country that insurance companies would use it.
So you've got the candles.
Special candle holders that hook onto the branch like that, and you just make sure when you put the candle on that there isn't a branch directly above. That is the key to it. Honestly, I've never known this to happen, but insurance companies refuse to insure people against this particular thing. And in fact, there was a sort of a spate of patents for self-extinguishing Christmas trees for a while. There was an American called Leonard Deo. He filed a patent in 1947, and it had a hose that ran up the trunk and had a sprinkler system on the top of the tree that you could use to prevent
Some of these songs you remember to take the jackdaw out at night.
Yeah. Lack of a jackdaw and why we've been so successful so far.
Has anyone ever done a poem about Jack? Because if they haven't, I'm going to do one before the end. It's really bothering me that it sounds so like a backdoor.
Right, the jackdaw and the backdoor does sound like some kind of reverse.
They go together.
Yes, they do. Right, you do that. We'll do the next question on our own.
Jackdaw, backdoor, lackmore, smackmore. That's what. Seashore, seashore. Crack whore. I'm thinking crack whore is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, what about bee paw?
Beating a bee paw? No, it's got to be.
Why am I joining in?
She sells seashells down by the crack whore. That's jackdaw flying in the back door.
You carry on, darling.
I've never been happier. Don't.
Hacksaw. Hang on, I'm looking at Jimmy Taxlaw.
In all fairness, I don't pay tax either, but I don't get caught.
Right. What would you hear at the most peaceful place in Britain?
I reckon dogging. They're ruining the countryside.
We've got rights.
You've also got houses.
I think the answer is builders.
Builders?
Builders. Because that's what happens in all the most beautiful places on the land. All you can hear is builders.
Well, that is not the case, because we are looking at the most peaceful spot in Britain. It's been officially declared the Campaign to Protect Rural England. It is a region of Northumberland National Park. It's been left alone since 1911. 23% of this national park is owned by the MOD and is used for military training. So, remarkably quiet, unless a tank is going past. Yeah, or they're firing things at you.
There's one of them down in Lulworth Cove in Dorset, where there's a tank firing range, and there's massive traffic signs that just say, "Warning, sudden gunfire." I mean, I don't know about how the rest of you live, but all gunfire is sudden for me.
Yes.
I always wondered with that sign, it's a triangle with falling rocks, and it just says falling rocks.
Yeah.
That might as well just say, be lucky.
Yeah.
When you're driving along doing that, that's when you hit things.
You'll get little beeps just as they come just above your car.
There won't be a beep. That's the annoying thing. There'll be no beep.
You ain't got a beep on
There
the
won't be
back.
a roof beep.
Does anybody else, when you go through one of those, the height inhibitor into a certain car, you're in the car and you know you're going to fit into it?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what my one is. I'll be driving along on the motorway, and there'll be fog, and I'll drive like that. Just in case the fog is in the car. There's a big sign saying fog. You can see it, it's not that bad, is it?
Other quiet options. Does anybody know what Teesside Airport train station is near?
It's near.
Well, this is the thing. It is not anywhere near Teesside Airport for two reasons. One is it's a mile away from the airport, and the other thing is the airport has been renamed
They can't join our group.
Tees Valley Airport. There's one train a week. It's on a Sunday, 14:56. It is one
They
of our
can't join
busiest
our group.
stations.
So those stairs just go up and up.
Well, so they announced in December 2017 that the footbridge would be closed, and apparently would save £6 million if they did so until 2022, because that's how much it costs to maintain it. And in fact, most of the tickets that are bought to Teesside Airport Station are purely bought by collectors, because there's no point in going there, and now they've closed the footbridge as well. There are quite a few of these ghost stations. There's the Leeds Snaith line, Monday to Saturdays, one train a day. Apparently, it is easier to maintain a minimal service than go to the expense of closing down an entire line.
this is going to be a godsend to doggers who have lost their license. I think you've just given them a whole new option.
They think the reason they keep it is because people would be upset if it was closed, which I love as a British reason.
I'd be upset, and I've only just heard that it existed.
Yeah. If you were in the United States and you want to complete quiet, you go to a place called the National Forest in West Virginia. It's a 13,000 square mile patch of land where all electromagnetic radiation is banned, and it's because it's where the National Radio Astronomy Observatory is there, and they don't want any interference with it. All the vehicles that they use around the area are relics from the 1950s or 60s, or trucks with diesel engines, because the spark plug in a modern petrol engine might cause some interference. Microwave ovens are kept in special sort of metal cages. People use phone booths in place of mobile phones.
Well, it's like a real glimpse into America's future.
Who here likes total silence? Who finds it disconcerting?
I had a situation where I was flying back from Portugal on quite a well-known bargain airline, and I had to go straight off to do some work. So I wanted to sleep on the almost 3 hours on the plane. And the other side of the aisle was a Portuguese lady and her 2 3-year-old son who had an iPad, and the iPad was on, and it was going bing, ba, bing, bong, bing, 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 bong, bong, bong.
They can't join our group.
Love that game. Sounds like he was doing pretty well.
That's actually one of the Wu-Tang Clan's most famous songs.
I had a brand new set of headphones, but I couldn't converse with this lady, so I went to the crew who were also Portuguese in the back, and I went, I've got these headphones, this situation, I really need sleep, and I'm very happy for them. Keep the headphones and totally understand and parent myself, keep the kids distracted, but I really need sleep. He went, no problem, no problem. He goes down there and he snatches the iPad off her and goes, no, no, no. And then he takes the iPad and he bolts her over the head. Oh my goodness! Then he turns around to me and went, enjoy your flight.
And then a lovely 3 hours sleep.
Well, yeah, I was just trying to sleep.
That's still
And a
recharging.
child crying.
Wow, that's one way of dealing with it, isn't it? How do you quell a carnivorous fly?
I can't test that yet. That spell isn't ready.
Stop it being able to actually function. So let's have a quick look. Let's have a look at the Venus flytrap, okay? So you know the theory behind the Venus flytrap.
Fly away! Fly!
Have a look at a video of it actually functioning, because it is the most extraordinary thing. So watch it just closing up. So there is the fly. Oh, I mean, it's creepy, right? But if you wanted to make it stop working, you would anesthetize it exactly as you do human beings. So you can gas them with ether, you can swab the roots with lidocaine, and what will happen is it'll just stop working. The fly will land there, but the thing won't close down. And it is found that the electrical impulses in the plant have temporarily dropped to zero. Exactly the same effect as what happens to us.
Exactly the same anesthetic as that.
Yes, exactly. So
That's not extraordinary. This makes as much as 1,000 times more powerful than heroin is an opiate. And drug dealers in the States now selling fentanyl, but they're having to cut it with heroin to take the edge off. It's like trying to defuse a bomb by flying a plane into it. It's mad.
Yeah, carfentanyl's even stronger.
This is my own personal brand of fentanyl.
It's really good. You don't pay VAT on it. Whether it's a cop or ambulance personnel, when they pick up someone who's OD from carfentanil, they've got to wear extra thick gloves because you just touch skin to skin.
it would still
You'll
have some effect
Through your skin. So why does anyone take it?
I think it's very Moorish.
We don't entirely know how anesthetics actually work. We do know that something like lidocaine works by stopping local neuron signaling to the human brain, but it also seems to work on plants. And the truth is, we don't really know how anesthetics work. Can I just show you something which I hadn't seen before, but maybe you have? I'd never seen a Venus flytrap in flower, and actually they're rather beautiful because you only ever see it when it's looking sort of slightly vicious. But isn't it rather lovely?
That's terrifying.
I think it's rather beautiful. They gassed all sorts of other plants as well. The effect is the same. They all just went straight to sleep.
Has anyone asked why they're up to this?
We're trying to work out how anesthetics work.
It wasn't like a group of flies.
No, it wasn't.
Something done about these guys.
Yeah.
distracts your brain from the part of your brain that's getting the messages about being in pain. So it's something quite good if you don't have any pain relief, if you think about colours one at a time.
Yeah. People with hypermobility, so double-jointed people, appear to be resistant to sort of topical creams and to being injected to local anaesthetics. That is, I know, that's quite strange, isn't it? 3 times more likely a hypermobile person to report that local anaesthetic is not effective.
I know you're still talking, but I can't stop looking at that. I'm aware you're speaking, but who cares?
He does these amazing
They can't
YouTube
join our
yoga
group.
tutorials.
I can't help feeling, I mean, I know it's just a story, but I think a radioactive spider's been involved there.
In general, whether you're animal or vegetable anaesthetic will produce. Now, who would use a Quaker gun?
Well, not a Quaker. They're famously pacifists.
They are famously
They can't join our group.
So is the gun.
It's to scare something away then.
Yeah, look at that gun.
Hit them.
It's just a log. And put it to look like a gun.
Oh, it's like someone has it in the jacket, has the gun in the jacket, and they go, yeah.
I'm lost. How the hell? Oh, I think I came through here.
In 1718, there was a Colonel William Washington, and he managed to convince a loyalist commander and 120 of his followers to surrender from their barricaded barn by pointing a painted log at them. Just a pine log.
The fuck, dude? I'm so confused.
A loser battle.
Yeah.
No, he didn't have a gun after all.
Just killed
Okay.
off by the Arts and Crafts Army.
But the Americans did it as well in the Second World War, so the Mitchell B-25 bomber did not have any guns at the rear, so they just painted some broomstick handles and stuck them at the back, so the Japanese thought, I better not come from behind because they've got guns at the back.
We did the same thing here. We had inflatable tanks
That's
all along
right.
the south coast.
The Allies had inflatable tanks, and they used them in North Africa to confuse the Nazis.
I didn't know they were inflatable then.
No, they were literally, they were like...
Like a bouncy castle?
Yes, yeah. And to show that they had a sense of humour about it too, the Germans dropped wooden bombs on them.
Well, I knew that we had fake stuff, but I did not know that it was made. I mean, like, honestly, like just.
Yeah, like a girlfriend.
I think, darling, that they were made of
The
cannons.
fuck? How do I get up there, man? Oh my god.
Just there back at the base. Just
How did I
calm
get up
away.
there?
It's going to be funny.
Don't do that, Axel, with that haircut. Either one is fine, but when you combine them, I feel it's dangerous.
Anybody ever been to a Quaker meeting?
Yes. Yeah,
Let's go to a silent one.
Yeah. Waterford in Ireland is the Quaker capital of Ireland. Everybody's just silent until somebody gets taken by the Holy Spirit, and then they stand up and they offer up a prayer, and that's it for an hour. You know, so there's no hymns, there's nothing else.
The thing I've discovered, which I didn't know, because I thought all Quaker meetings were silent, is only 11% of Quaker worship. There's an awful lot of people going to what's called programmed. I love the whole silent, unprogrammed worship. I have to say, not as much as a group of young Quakers in Nottingham. In February 2018, they released it was a big hit, a silent podcast. It broadcast an entire 30-minute meeting for worship, and it just featured audible shuffles, creaking chairs, and the turning of a Quaker advice and queries pages. That's it.
I could have just taken one of my audiences.
And now, it's time to
They can't
whisper
join our group.
calming quietude of general ignorance. How good are you at multitasking?
Excellent.
Excellent. Okay. Here we go.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was going to be tested on.
Just volunteered yourself, okay? So, I want to take this stack from here and to recreate it exactly the same on this one, and you're going to have to move them one at a time, okay? But while you're doing it, I want you to recite the alphabet backwards.
Well, I can't do that anyway. I mean, I don't think I can do it forwards. A.
No, so you don't understand how the game functions.
I'm going to find out that Andrew's a toddler. Just took him off and put them on the counter.
A, B, C.
And put them on the middle one! Andrew.
All right, okay.
Listen to me.
Right on.
Start again.
This is more annoying than my microwave.
Okay, here we go again.
Z, Y,
Keep them on the post.
X.
Move them one at a time.
No, the middle one.
What's wrong with
No,
this?
don't help him. I love this because, as I said,
Z, Y, X, W, V. You.
Don't pretend you could do this. So why did you say that you are good at multitasking?
I'm a man and I like to brag.
What they found is doing tests at Stanford University, people who consider themselves to be good at multitasking actually do worse at performing multiple tasks than people who prefer to focus on things one at a time. It's one of those strange things.
But
Anybody else think they would be better at it?
I mean, than that, yeah.
Go. The fact is that what we now know is that the brain is pretty much incapable of focusing on more than one thing at a time.
Yeah.
If it requires a level of thought. I mean, walking you can do and do something else at the same time. But the tasks that...
I did a course years ago in neurolinguistic programming, and the idea was that your conscious mind can hold like 5 things in it. So if you think about how do my feet feel at the moment in these shoes, how's my breathing, and you think about what I'm having for dinner this evening, and then the first thing's gone. You can't remember how your feet feel in the shoes because your conscious mind doesn't do that much, but your subconscious mind. So doing 2 things at the same time. If it's done by your subconscious mind, then yes.
Yeah.
If it's breathing and walking.
It depends what the thing is. So singing, which is an auditory process, is easy to combine with riding a bicycle because that is a motor process. They utilize different brain processes. It's when you've got a thing that really requires single focus. It's called a bottleneck.
Like voting.
Yes, exactly like that. Exactly like that. When you're multitasking,
I'm out of range.
back and forth very fast between the tasks. So really, better off
I need to get closer.
What's that thing about men not being able to multitask and women being able to?
No, but it's kind of reverse sexism. Essentially, it was invented by men to go, no, you should do all the housework because you're able to kind of
I can't cast that
do
yet.
the dinner, and get the kitchen clean. That's what goes.
The actual massive suburban house. And the husband can't put in a light bulb. The amount of ads that Anyway, buy this.
Yeah, and also it is insulting to
There is
men.
no consensus at all as to whether men or women are better at multitasking. But multitasking actually causes a temporary 10-point decrease in IQ. It's about the same as smoking marijuana or missing a night sleep. Try and multitask. You're much better off doing things one at a time.
Yeah.
It seems there's no such thing as a multitask master. Right, everybody gets a banana.
Oh, no one cares.
I want you to show me how a wild monkey would eat this, please.
Oh, I reckon I know this.
I know.
Yes. Oh.
Upside down.
Oh, there you go.
I think monkeys in the wild don't, in fact.
Oh, because they don't have access to bananas.
It's like the way polar bears don't eat penguins
Yeah.
because they don't like chocolate biscuits.
You're absolutely right. Wild monkeys do not eat bananas at all. Why is that?
There are no bananas in the wild.
Correct. Absolutely right. It's a domesticated plant, the edible banana.
And there's only one left, isn't there?
What, banana?
No.
Oh,
type of
anyone.
Yeah, it died out, and there was one place that had them, and they're now caters to everyone.
Well, there are some bananas that grow in the wild, but they are not particularly.
Banana plant takes 9 months to grow,
Yeah.
9 months to produce a bunch of bananas, and then that's it.
And it's technically a herb.
These are all correct facts about bananas. But the wild banana is oval. It's not remotely sweet. It's not particularly edible. Monkeys do not tend to eat them. They do like to eat them in the zoo. Let's see how. There's a monkey eating it in the zoo. They seem to eat it anyway. They like it. They pierce the skin. He just wants to get it down him, doesn't he? He just doesn't really care.
That smell
They
is
do love
ready.
human engineered food. They've been known to raid plantations. But painting is very monkeys from eating nutrition. And here's my favourite banana fact. Enid Blyton's nephew, Carrie Blyton, wrote the song Bananas in Pyjamas. That's a bit random. As we were doing songs, and I didn't know any of them, I know that one.
Oh, I know. Let's all go along the Strand, have a banana. It's because they used to have a fruit stall right at that end of the Charing Cross.
Desert Connor was young, very tragic childhood, which he recovered from. But his autobiography was called Bananas Can't Fly because his father would hold a banana and encourage him to recover the use of his legs. And say, you've got to come and get it, it can't fly. And it was a rare thing to have a banana. And then he recovered. He went to the shop.
That's a wonderful story.
Where was the fruit stall in? Did you say the Strand?
So there's a really old kind of London Cockney song.
It's too far away.
Because he used to be able to. I've got a friend that wrote a book about pineapples. And he used to be able to rent a pineapple on the Strand. No one ever knows when I first saw
No, it was a sign of wealth. Yeah. They had them on Lambeth Bridge in the architecture. And it was a fashion item. Women dressed up like pineapples.
I heard this lovely story about 7 years ago. Wives would put a pineapple on them, and it would signify my husband, so no gentleman call us please.
Yeah, absolutely.
So someone told me that stately home thing, the big pineapples on the front of stately homes, is kind of a gag alluding to that.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you used to get gate posts with pineapples on them.
Yeah.
So the lady was permanently virtuous.
Kind of cute.
I'm not getting one.
There was a woman that died in pineapples,
Died in
She bathed in pineapple and the acid killed her.
Right, moving on. What did the first sneeze sound like?
A tissue.
No.
Chew. Chew is different.
Yeah.
Tissue is different from a chew. Not
Okay.
having that. You press the wrong
No,
button.
I think everything about sneezing.
Tissue. It's not the same as chew. That's a different sneeze.
Okay. Everything about sneezing is adorable. That the way that people, their eyes kind of glaze over, like they can't concentrate for a second. Yeah, you think you'll be back and it'll be even stronger.
I don't think
That's still recharging.
sneeze. I think it's the social.
You're absolutely right. It's an affectation.
It could go.
Well, deaf people who have never heard affectation do not make the sounds of the rest of the sneeze. So the tissue, chew, or in German, hapchi, hapchon in Japanese, the Filipino is hatsing, the Polish say hapsik. We all have a noise that we make, but we've learned to make it. Apparently, if you have never heard a sneeze before, what it actually should sound like is a heavy breath as the deep pre-sneeze breath is taken, then a sharper, faster sound of air being released. But we make that noise because we think we're supposed to. It's what sneeze sounds.
That's a great
It's a really great fact.
Yeah. I'm so sorry.
That's a great sneeze. Do that again.
Alan's come down with something. Very poorly.
That's several years ago, darling.
Yeah.
It's still
We
battling.
need some WD-40.
There's also a different cultural response to how we sneeze. So we tend to say, bless you, that tends to be the thing. The Burmese say understood. I don't know why. The Chinese say do hon din shawe. It means drink more water. The Portuguese cry little saint. The Serbians say go away kitten. The record for the longest fit of sneezing belongs to a British woman called Donna Griffiths. She began sneezing on the 13th of January 1981. She had her first sneeze-free day 977 days later. She sneezed an estimated 1 million times.
What did the pepper factory have?
Just be clear, that's not her. Okay, that's just a very nice random person.
Stock image
Stock
sneezer.
image of person.
Yeah. So, and at school, did you have that thing where everyone was like, if you sneeze 8 times, it's the same as the whole sneeze?
No.
That was the thing at school. It's like, oh, 3, 5 more. Yeah. 5 more.
What do you say when because the Koreans say.
Go away, kitten.
I think when you orgasm, I think it's nice to say bang goes the dynamite. Or whoopsie daisies.
Yeah, that's some solid regen.
That also works.
It's the most fantastic game which is played, and I'm sorry I haven't a clue. She's coming up with sentences that work both in the kitchen and in the bedroom. So things like, oh, it's a bit dry, do you have any cream? I prefer your mother's, that kind of thing.
Do you fancy a roast this Sunday?
That's it. Just stick it in for 20 minutes and I'll get you the free garlic bread. All of which leaves us clamouring for the scores. And I can tell you, in 4th place, -2, it's Alan.
Huzzah!
Second place with a full 3 points, Andrew. In first place with 7 actual points, it's Jimmy. Right, it's thanks to Andrew, Jimmy, Sarah, and Alan. I leave you with this quick quotation from Mark Twain. I thoroughly disapprove of duels. If a man should challenge me, I would take him the hand and lead him to a quiet place and kill him. Good night.
Can't pass that way.
None may steal the secrets of
It
the
is.
makers.
This week we are looking through the looking glass for a show that's all about reflections. On reflection, it's Joe Lycett. Reflecting on what she's done, Lisa Tarbuck. Reflecting the mood of the nation, it's Zoe Lyle. And next year's Wreath Lecturer, Reflecturer. Okay, Alan Davis! Lisa goes. Lisa. Zoe goes. Zoe. And Alan goes. Alan, As you can see, we have made this episode a mirror image of what you usually see, which is to say that, Alan, we have put you on the opposite side to usual. I know. How many years in the other chair?
18.
Does it feel weird?
It does feel weird.
Yeah.
You look a little bit different from this side.
Is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's got like, oh my god.
Yeah. Right, here is a question. Why do mirrors flip you side to side and not upside down?
That's very good, yes.
Yes, why is it?
Two eyes. It must be your eyes are level.
Okay, let us imagine that we're looking at writing on a t-shirt, okay, and you can read it perfectly well, and then you look in a mirror, the writing on the t-shirt appears to be flipped.
That way.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Like that, so you can see it's back to front. Yeah, why is that? Why does the mirror do that, and why does it not flip us upside down as well? Why does it only flip left to left?
Is it not what Alan said about your eyes being left and right?
I like your eyes on the side of your head when you do that.
Yeah.
Just like a fish.
Is your eye seeing actually what it is? Does your brain... Does your brain flip it?
Have you had a stroke?
Yeah.
When it comes in your eye, it's already flipped.
Right.
And your brain flips it around.
What he said, That's what
I think everybody is making it much too complicated. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to try this, and Joe is going to be my assistant. Joe, I want you to take a piece of card that we have got here.
Yes.
Write a large, clear word in capital
I need to get
letters.
closer.
Oh my god, are you going to try and guess it?
No, I don't want to guess it. It's not a magical trick.
What's the point then? I want a magic trick.
That's still
Okay,
recharging.
Lisa, could you... The word.
Any word.
Any word, darling. What about the word boss, for example, which, you know, lots of people have a boss, right?
Looks like we're off to court.
Right, and can you write the same word on this piece of glass? Okay, so I am going to go over here and stand in front of the camera and the glass, and you can see, hopefully, are the audience able to see this? Can you see it on the monitors, everybody? So you can see that it says boss. Now, when I have it, as it were, on my t-shirt, and I look in the mirror, it is... It's flipped round, okay?
Yeah.
So the question is, why does it do that? Well, the mirror hasn't done anything. It was me who flipped it round. There is absolutely nothing
This guy wants me to replace Evarin, and I won't do it. I'm not gonna do it.
Thank you, my darling. The most brilliant magician's assistant there. Fantastic.
He's not in our guild.
So try and imagine if you were a fish and you had your eyes on either side of your head, and the fish. Have we got a picture of a fish swimming? There we go. So a fish swimming alongside a mirror would see the eye exactly where it's supposed to be and the tail exactly where it's supposed to be. It would know that the mirror has done that. The flipping is done by us and not by the mirror.
I don't think I've ever questioned that.
No, and then actually once you do start thinking about it, it does slightly do your head in.
So hang on, is Alan over there because I've done it in my head?
Yes.
Everyone's done me in their head.
You know what? I haven't, but I am now.
Is there a mirror?
There is another thing that curious about this.
Fucking clouds.
Each have a mirror there. If you and you can try this when you have a mirror at home, hold it quite close to your face. Okay. Look at one or other of your eyes in the reflection. Just choose one. If you then transfer your gaze to the other eye, you will not see.
Oh, that's so weird.
That is quite strange, isn't it?
It bulged forward as well.
What, your eye?
No, the whole part of that part of my face.
I think that's a medical condition that. So I mean, try it. It's a very curious thing. Scream! You know what? I've suddenly realised. This is my 5th year hosting, and I expect all trouble to come from my right, and today it's from my left. It's a very strange thing. Here's a question for you. If I'm in a box with a mirrored
Much taller.
If I made a box with a mirrored interior and we shone a light in it and we closed it, does the light keep bouncing around?
Are you in the box?
Yeah, I'm in the box with a small torch. Right, let's work it that way.
We just bang on the box and go, Sandy.
If I turn
Sandy, can you see a light?
If I turn the torch on and then I turn it off again, will it bounce around forever?
No.
Why not?
Well, I don't know. Love you to tell me.
No.
Well, if you imagined this was a giant box and you had 2 mirrors over there and you shone a torch, it wouldn't. If you then turn the torch off,
It's not gonna bounce
it wouldn't bounce back and forth.
But why not?
Because
It's because no mirror reflects 100% of the light striking it. So some of it is absorbed, and eventually, I mean, actually, unbelievably quickly, because it's.
I was gonna say something, but I'm not gonna say nothing. Oh, I'll say something after the events unfold. But like, this tank wants me to kick out Evarin because he doesn't want Evarin competing with him in gear, and he wants a different DPS apparently.
Yeah, swim underwater is absolutely true. Yes.
But that ain't gonna happen.
Babies could do that, but that is not believed.
No, I learned that out the hard way.
Yeah.
3 nieces was too many anyway.
That spell is ready.
Do we know what kind of fish this is? Stripy fish?
Cleaner fish.
It's a cleaner fish. Yes, it is. It is. It's a cleaner wrasse.
is it something to do with reflections?
Yes.
So
Well done, Joe, for paying attention.
Can it recognise itself in a mirror this baby's heart?
It's one of the very few animals, in fact, it's the very first fish to pass what's called the mirror test to recognise its reflection of itself.
How do you test that?
Well, so what you do is you mark the animal in a place where it can only see the mark in a mirror. So, for example, the forehead would be a good place, and then see whether or not it observes it, whether or not it tries to scratch it to remove it.
We'll have a job though, Sandy, won't it? Trying to scratch that off with no hands.
Except that cleaning off marks, Zoe, is what it does for a living.
For a living?
Yeah, they do actually have stations, and the clients, as it were, come to the station to be cleaned. They work for about 4 hours a day, and they clean about 2,000 clients. So it does seem like, when you're looking at them, as if it's a job, but that's what they do for a living. exciting.
It's got to be a lot of trust.
A lot of trust, except that all of the fish that are cleaned end up living longer, and they tend
can't
to be
cast
smarter
that yet.
because they don't have parasites. I mean, there is a sort of a caveat with this. It's possible that what the wrasse is actually doing is signalling to the other wrasse in the mirror, if you see what I mean, that it ought to clean itself. It actually doesn't see that it's itself. It's going to the other wrasse. You've got a little something. You've got a little something here, so it may not be aware that it's a mirror image of itself.
When babies start to recognize.
About the age of 2.
That's still recharging.
She knew the way to the city farm when it was 1.5.
Was she trying to get away?
Yes, she was.
There's actually very few species that pass the test.
I need
Great
more
apes
mana.
mostly do, but not gorillas. And what I love is that animals do exactly what humans do when they discover a mirror for the very first time. First of all, an animal would look behind it to see if there's an animal behind it, and then they'll do funny movements, like we do in the fun fair, to see what is this. And then they will indulge in the same behaviour as an office worker left alone with a photocopier. They'll see parts of their body. I know, yeah.
We don't have more mirrored seating, really, isn't it?
No, I don't think it is, really.
We would like a mirrored chair. You get some very odd selfies there. That ridiculous.
Would you get a mirrored internal bowl of a toilet? Because that would be like a funfair mirror for your undercarriage, wouldn't it? Because that would have a curve to it.
You definitely have a mirror in your eye. I can't see why.
Because
Stop
honestly,
shooting at yourself.
what is wrong with men? A sense of fun, darling. You've actually got an aiming device that doesn't seem to work.
Oh, no, mine does. Mine does, because in one pub in London that I went to, there's like a game, and it's got sensors in the urinal, and I got the top score on there, and it asks you to put your name in, but I didn't want to put my name in, so I put Adrian Giles. There's a pub in central London where Adrian Giles has got a real reputation.
Most animals either ignore their mirror image or they perceive it to be another animal. Sometimes they attack. That's really common in garden birds. Have you ever seen that with a garden bird as it goes out a window? There are reports of robins attacking as many as 15 windows in the same house, because if you close the curtains and try and stop the reflection, it will think that the enemy is simply hiding and go look for another window. I mean, and another use of mirrors, which depends on animals not recognizing their reflections, is flamingos. So I don't know if you've ever seen this in the zoo. Sometimes
This place is fucking huge.
that is because they will not breed until the colony has achieved a certain minimum size, and so they trick smaller groups into
By
breeding.
Thorison's beard,
Loads of them.
slay them!
That's sort of the flamingo equivalent of mirrored seating.
Yes, yeah.
That spell is ready.
It's a turn on.
Yeah. Lovely. I've never given mirrors much
Can't cast that yet.
like this.
That's still recharging.
Recognizing
Oh my
yourself
God.
is a sign of exceptional intelligence. So well done to all our panel for getting through makeup tonight. Right, now I'm going to make it right like Leonardo da Vinci. How do you think I'm going to do that?
That spell is ready.
Did he write reflectively?
He wrote what's called mirror writing. So we are going to see if we can do this without thinking about it. Underneath the table is a piece of paper. You should have a pen. Take the pen, and I want you to write your names on the piece of photo. Wow, the boys.
I am left-handed though.
You are left-handed.
Does that affect it?
Yes, I think it does. The brain is wired slightly differently.
Better?
It's an unusual command, so it confuses our brains. It's not unusual to do it as mirror writing. It's common in children who are learning to write.
I've got half of them. That one's back to front, but that one's the right way.
You're right to be disappointed. That's shit.
It is a bit.
3 letters. One of them's the same either way.
Yeah. So what's all this got to do with Leonardo da Vinci? Well, he wrote his personal notes in mirror writing, and nobody really knows why. Possibly for privacy. That is a possible thing. Maybe just to amuse himself. But he was left-handed. And my son is left-handed, and I asked him, and he said it's possible. He was just more comfortable. When the pen goes away from the body, as it does for a right-handed person when you're writing, it just feels better.
Well, no, also, I found when I was at school, particularly when you're using a fountain pen, you smudge it as you go over it.
Yeah.
So that's... He was smart, wasn't he, Leon?
Yeah, well,
I think we haven't given him enough credit.
We have a generally poor memory for the configuration of objects, so we're going to do a couple of quick tests to demonstrate. So, the audience, let's start with you. You've all seen the Statue of Liberty, I'm sure. You've seen a picture of it 1,000 times. I want you to vote whether the statue holds the torch in the right or the left hand.
Oh, God.
So, hands up for right, and hands up for left. Well, I think left pretty much had the edge there, and the answer is it's in the right hand. Okay, let's try the panel. So we see fonts all the time now, that's the thing. Which of the 4 lowercase g's written on the screen is correct? Number 1. 3. 1, 3, or...
1 and 2.
Well, let's let the audience vote for number 1. Hardly anybody. Number 2. Quite a lot. Number 3. Even more. Number 4. Well, so none of us can really remember. The answer is number 2. Number 2 is the correct way, yeah. But these are things we see all the time, and we have an inability to correctly recall the configuration of things. Where do we routinely see mirror writing? Almost every day from driving.
Ambulance.
Yeah, fire engines and ambulances. Can I just show you this? I love this. In 2015, the city of Nanjing, they actually made fire engines that were, if you like, mirror images of themselves. Don't you love these? They're like push me, pull yous. Yeah. So they have
Not enough
tunnels,
mana.
they have very crowded, narrow streets and so on. They didn't have the space to turn around, so they just made it you could drive it from both ends.
It's too far away.
I think it's fantastic. I want that as a car.
Yeah.
They also have really tiny little ones. And again, it's for very, very small streets. Just one fireman turns up. Tiny little fire engine. Water piss. I know, yeah.
With 3 blokes who want to wee.
Yeah.
Adrian Giles is coming in.
What's the difference between a one-way mirror and a two-way mirror?
Oh.
So a two-way mirror, I would think,
yes.
is the one that in the cop shows.
Yes.
That you're looking through at the suspect being interviewed.
Yeah.
And remaining anonymous.
And they can't see you.
Yeah.
So are you saying it's a different kind of mirror?
Wow, now that's actually got to be one way, hasn't it? So you're seeing,
yeah,
they can't
Can't
see
cast
it.
that yet.
So is that different to...
I want to go
Is it just a paint?
This is amazing. I've just not ever thought
What about mirrors?
Is a two-way mirror just a window?
It's a window with a light out.
Yeah, that's it.
They all sit in the dark, don't they? Mulder and Scully and all them. They sit in the dark.
Yeah, that does matter that they're sitting in
The other light is very, very, very brightly lit.
Right, so
while
what
they're
does
in
that
there.
tell us?
Sweaty. Do you want a cigarette? You can't.
That's a one-way mirror.
Yeah, the effect depends on what they call a half-silvered
What a
surface.
big zone. My gosh.
So it penetrates at an equal rate on both sides, this mirror. It's not, does it only works one way? You know, if you stand in a lit room, okay, and it is dark outside, and there's somebody outside, you can't see them, but they can see you perfectly well. It is the same effect, so that one-way and two-way mirrors are exactly the same thing. There is nothing really special about one side of the mirror over the other. If one side is brightly lit and the other side is left in darkness, And it's been used by politicians, people like Narendra Modi, the French presidential hopeful Jean-Luc Mélenchon. This is him on stage, except it isn't him. It is a hologram. Almost every hologram you'll ever see is a version of Pepper's Ghost, and I love the Victorians and the emoji to it. Sort of don't use it very much.
That spell
Right.
isn't ready.
Who has the biggest ears in Britain?
GCHQ.
Yeah, Alexa.
I'll go with that.
It's size.
I think this guy's probably up there.
Yeah, he's up there. Yeah.
Has that been photoshopped or is that a real ear?
No, darling, it's pretty. What do we think we are talking about? So you're not far off in terms of protection, security of the
Got
country.
one of those listening devices built for the invention of radar.
It
Can't
is.
test
You
that
are
yet.
exactly right, and get an additional point.
That's on him, dude. Oh, my bad.
I should have half of that point.
It's the concrete ears.
No.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You'll see 3 of them at Dungeness. Aren't they amazing? So it's the precursor to radar. These are these huge concrete dishes. They were along the south coast and elsewhere at the beginning of World War II to detect approaching aircraft. And if you look at the middle, they had a microphone suspended in the focal point. And they had a range of up to 27 miles. They could hear planes coming. So here's the problem with it. If a plane comes from behind...
That thing in Germany's not behind, is it?
No,
Over there.
but they might have thought, I've got those here, I'm going to circle round and come in. Or if
Same principle as an owl's head.
Is this you being an owl? Are you being an owl?
Be an owl for
Okay,
you now.
yeah.
Be an owl for you.
That's it, yeah.
They fly with their heads pointing down.
Yeah.
And the sound comes from little things trying to avoid really night rustling around.
That's me.
It's amplified within the concave face. So they can hear animals underground, 4 feet underground.
It is
and
astonishing.
hover about waiting for them to come out.
Yeah.
They must fly into a lot of lampposts.
You can see their lampposts.
Yeah.
But no,
The tree.
I thought that was because the animals that they were chasing,
Yeah.
the urine has got a different sort of phosphorescence.
That's true.
That's hawks.
But the amazing thing about these, the harder the material, the more that the sound will bounce off it. So concrete is absolutely ideal. But then radar came in and superseded it, faster planes and so on. I love the whole story of British radar being discovered. It's a byproduct of something unsuccessful. So they wanted to develop a death ray, obviously. Mid-1930s, the British government, they wanted to stay ahead of the Nazis in the arms race. So they offered a £1,000 prize to anybody who could zap a sheep at 100 paces. And they gave this a go, and there was a man called Robert Watson Watt.
I'm out of range.
There he is. Doesn't he look like? Hello, I'm from the 1930s. Of the radio research station, they asked him if he would work on this, and he realised it was impossible. It would require far too much power. But he suggested some alternative research. He looked into using radio waves to detect far-off planes long before they could be seen, basically by sending out radio signals and then timing how long it took for it to echo back. And that became the radar system, which was obviously so hugely important in the war. Now, which is better, symmetrical knees or symmetrical nostrils? I know. Who would have thought there was a choice?
which is better.
Yeah, which is better?
I'd say knees.
Why would you say knees?
To have your face exactly the same on both sides.
It's weird.
Actually be really odd, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
I thought the height of beauty was having a symmetrical face.
Okay, let's have a look at ourselves with symmetrical faces.
Oh, God.
Here we are. This is the left side of your faces replicated.
It's had more impact on your head.
I look terrified. I look like a chipmunk. So that's our left side. So let's have a look at our right sides and see if we think that's any better.
Oh, Christ, you're straight out of Star Trek.
I come in peace.
That is the weirdest thing. Alan, you don't look like yourself at all.
Oh, look at Alan. I feel really sad for him there. I don't know why.
They say that part of the attraction of a person is the symmetry of their face, but I'm not sure.
No.
I'm not sure that is entirely true. Let's go back to knees and nostrils. So the answer is it depends what you want to do. So knees for a sprinter and nostrils for a distance runner. There's a man called Robert
I
Trivers
can't believe
and
that.
lots of his colleagues. And they looked into Jamaican athletes in particular, and they found that symmetrical knees and ankles, which are like sprinters, and symmetrical nostrils do the same for distance running. Why that? Well, breathing much more important the longer distance that you run, so you're going to need better nostrils. Symmetry of feet apparently doesn't seem to matter to runners at all. The longer distance runners tend to have relatively asymmetric feet, actually. I couldn't work out whether that's because they go around on the track all the time. They got But in all of the groups, the left foot tends to be larger than the right in runners.
Wow.
My left foot's bigger than my right.
Is it? Considerably?
About half the size.
Good to know.
Weirdly, it's all on the back of the foot. The front of the foot's the same.
What, your heel? You've got a big bulging heel. Is that what you're saying?
It goes back about 6 inches.
I've never noticed that.
I've got the effect of a kind of a rocking chair. One way at a bus stop, I can be quite alarming on one.
Anyway, you might think that symmetrical knees are caused by sprinting, but in fact it can be used as a predictive measure. If you look at the relevant symmetry of a child at the age of 8, you can predict whether or not they're going to be a good sprinter. So it's not the training program that has changed their physiology, it's the fact that they already had symmetrical knees that made them good at sprinting. Back in the day, what was the problem with watching snooker in the mirror?
It was in black and white.
Well, that is in a way correct.
Because you know, within football, they used to have a rule that if it was an international game, you couldn't have teams, even if they were red and blue shirts, one of them had to change. Because in many of the developing countries, they hadn't yet got colour television, and they wanted to expand football around the world. And if you're watching black and white, you couldn't tell the difference between one team.
Yeah, so television sets in the early days were monochrome, and so were the earliest mirrors. The reflections that they gave were effectively monochrome.
What?
Yes, because strong, bright colours were sort of dimly distinguishable, but subtle colour distinctions were really difficult, so a game of snooker watched in an early mirror would have been practically impossible.
Sorry, the mirror.
Whoa
made,
there!
The mirror made things black and white.
So the earliest mirrors are made of volcanic glass. It's something called obsidian. Have a look at this, Stanley, and you will see. So you have to imagine this is before the invention of being able to put silver on glass.
For the invention of snooker, surely.
Well, I'm trying to explain that the way snooker was viewed on television
On obsidian.
would have been a bit like looking in an early mirror. So here you are. This is a piece of volcanic glass. It's naturally occurring, and that's a piece of obsidian glass up there. And you can see some bright colours, you can see some shapes dimly, but you are not able to distinguish subtlety of colour in any way.
That's the sort of mirror I want in my house. What you look at before you go out and go, I look cracking. I look like a shadow.
Yeah.
No way, dude. Fuck him.
So this is the sort of early stuff, and it's made when
Lovely,
it's
isn't it?
beautiful, isn't it? John Dee, who was the astrologer to Elizabeth I, and his assistant Edward Keeley used to use one for scrying. This, in fact, is his piece of glass that he used for scrying. Does anybody know what scrying is?
When you look at it and you're telling the future, so you'd scry with a crystal ball,
Exactly
or you'd
right.
scry with a goblet with some water in it.
It's a form of divination. They called it a showstone. And today you can do it in the glass of a smartphone. There was a fashion for viewing landscapes in something called a clawed glass in the late 18th century, so this is a rather beautiful thing. And the idea was that views, when you looked in it, seemed softer with the colours less pronounced. And the idea was to try and recreate a style of painting by artists like Claude Lorraine. That's why it's called a clawed glass. And it reduces and simplifies colour. So rather than look at views directly, people used to use them. They'd turn their back on the view and they would admire it through the mirror, and it would look more. So it's like this slightly mistier kind of quality. Members of the audience might try this. If you can face away, and if you have a smartphone, look in the screen of the smartphone.
And tell us the football score.
It would be the same effect as looking in a clawed glass. And what you get is you get a sort of a subtler image. You don't get all the bright colours.
I just took a selfie of all of you taking a selfie. You all look ridiculous.
Did it work? It is an extraordinary thing.
I think it's just the prototype for the contact lens.
Yes. So here's a picture of a church, just normal, and then we look at it through the clawed glass, and the idea is that it just gives you a sort of a softer, gentler thing.
What a noise from the audience!
I know.
Why can I see Joe in it there?
Is there something else that is reflective of?
Oh no, it's Zoe.
Oh, it's
You
Zoe.
will have.
See what I mean? Softer and gentler. Yeah. 1935. So before then, if you put hot metal on the glass, it just basically broke. That means that most people before mid-19th century had very little idea what they looked like.
What a relief.
I know. That's a famous picture of us. It's very rare that you get that fantastically detailed picture of yourself.
Where did she get that outfit from? Is that a Zara number?
Yeah.
Half a Zara number.
That is Echo.
He's going, I've got my boob out, look at me.
Stop looking at yourself.
No,
Here's a very...
Right out, fully out.
Right. How do these scientists know how far away the moon is?
We measure how long it takes the light to get to us using a mirror thing.
Yes, but where's the mirror?
They put a mirror on the moon.
5. They put 5 mirrors on the moon. Yep. 3 American, 2 Russian were left behind by the various... There's one. Various manned Apollo missions, the unmanned Soviet missions. The very first one, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, first men on the moon, planted it.
Looks like a bit of fly tipping, doesn't it?
Yeah.
On the way and get rid of fridge. Yeah.
Leave that there, that'll be gone in the morning.
Yeah. There'll be a mattress further on.
Looks like somebody's left a Ziploc.
Yeah.
Doesn't
If Armstrong's wife was anything like my wife, she would probably have to keep his passport in that when he went to the moon.
Why do you keep it in a bag?
You know, like one of you in a relationships always keep documents in a foldy thing, don't they?
Yeah.
And whenever we go on holidays, my wife has got 3 or 4 foldy things. A going foldy thing, a being there foldy thing, and a coming back foldy thing. And what he's done is he's got rid of his going there foldy thing.
I tell you what there are. There are lots of bags of poo on the moon.
Oh.
Are there? Yes, all up in trees.
Yeah.
When you say lots of, what we're talking?
1 a day from...
Just realized that.
And let's be honest, takeoff might necessitate at least 4.
That's a big
I think I'd struggle to get it into a bag.
There are 96 bags of human waste. These retroreflectors, astronomers used them for 40 years to precisely measure the distance between here and the moon. So what they did was they fired laser beams from equipment in Texas, and they timed how long it took to get there and bounce back again. And what they worked out is that the moon is moving away from us by about 3.8 centimeters per year.
He'll be back.
It's like the children.
Yeah, when he sees what it's like out there.
He'll be back.
More alarming if he was coming towards us 3.8 centimeters.
Oh no, the fucking knockback.
The accuracy that you need from Texas to hit this mirror with a laser, it's comparable to using a rifle to hit a moving penny 2 miles
can't
away.
cast
It's
that
the equivalent of measuring the distance between New York and Los Angeles to the nearest 0.25 millimeters. Now, for the part of the show which reflects poorly on everybody, general ignorance, fingers on buzzers, please. What's the best way to pull the pin out of a grenade? Joe.
I know they're going to go, ooh, I would love if I ever throw a grenade,
Yeah.
which I'm hoping I won't have to, but if I do, I'd love to go out with my teeth.
Okay, so the classic design is hold the lever like that, pull the pin out, and that is going to release the lever, and then chuck it and springs it, and trigger the time. But if you pull it out with your teeth, which they do in the movies, don't they? Because they're busy firing a gun with the other hand.
They're busy.
Yeah.
Oh God, I'm so busy firing this gun.
I know. You'd be terrible at the army, wouldn't you? No, not now. I'm busy.
Such a lot on.
I know. Bang, bang. Oh, loud. The pin is fenced so that you can't pull it out accidentally.
We're all pinching for water right now. It was getting there.
Hang on, will you?
Yeah. It's between 3 and 5 kilograms at least. The amount of force could very well break your teeth. Yeah. So it is a complete misconception that you put an aging child do this. If a grenade is thrown at you, what should you do? Should you try to throw it back?
Yeah.
Why?
Blow up over there.
There isn't time. I'd run if I was you. You've got 3 to 5 seconds.
That's still
3 to 5
recharging.
seconds from lobbing it. Or
From the person has thrown it.
Because like I said, I'm not much of a sprinter or a plodder, so you just want to...
Yeah, from the moment the person language syndrome.
Okay.
This, you don't speak in a foreign language, you speak in a foreign accent.
Is correct. That's
Clever.
exactly right. You can just feel the trapdoor opening and closing.
Because if you could speak another language, and all I'd have done at school is just bash my head off the desk. And go, Bonjour.
No.
Oui, ça va bien. Merci. No, it's just you speak in the accent.
Why do you do that face?
I don't know.
I'm actually smoking a Gaulois cigarette as well.
That's very odd.
Ça va bien. Merci beaucoup.
It's just so weird how you turn into a cartoon. You're absolutely right. They seem to have an impairment, a speech impairment. And the notion that they speak a foreign language, it's in the ear of the listener rather than in the mouth of the speaker. Sufferers have included George Michael. I don't know if you remember this. In 2012, he had pneumonia and he was briefly in a coma and he woke up with the sound.
You've got to have a faith. You've got to rock your body.
Oh, he had a West Country.
Oh.
He had a West Country.
You've got to have faith.
A faith, you got a faith.
Oh, he had a careless whisper, he did.
Yeah. This is a terrible story. There was a Norwegian woman called Astrid L, and she was hit in the head by shrapnel during World War II in an air raid, and it left her with a German accent. But it was a speech impairment, and it resulted in her being ostracized by other Norwegians because they thought that she had somehow been associated with the Germans.
I heard someone on this morning went on. They'd had a some organ transplant, and when they woke up, they were really into vacuuming.
Well, so this is not as weird as it sounds. The answer may be that some memory exists in cells where we didn't know they resided before.
Wow.
That you would pass on vacuuming is really annoying. There are exceptional stories of people having a head trauma and somehow acquiring some kind of skill, and that is weird. Derek Amate was a man who hit his head in a swimming pool. He was aged 40, and after that, he was a brilliant pianist, despite having never played before.
That's quite good luck.
Isn't it?
Yeah, you
I
have to
know.
hit it right on the right
Exactly
spot.
the right place. So he can't read music or imitate tunes, but the music he improvises is completely extraordinary, and nobody knows why. That is weird.
That is
one
weird,
of those
yeah.
things about the brain. It's just
Better than vacuuming.
That's this morning.
That is the booking policy of this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything over vacuuming,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
not interested. It was Chopin. No,
Yeah.
I'm Danker.
Phil and Holly aren't going to talk about Chopin.
No, why would they?
if someone starts speaking French after a knock on the head, it probably means they're French. Lastly, a question about reflexes. What happens if you dream that you are sleeping?
That spell isn't ready yet.
Yes, Lisa.
You wake up sneezing.
That's still recharging.
I was distracted by that picture.
You wake up as a dog.
Yeah. It's impossible to sneeze at the same time as dreaming. So during REM sleep, which is the time when you dream, your muscles, including all your reflex muscles, are completely paralyzed. It's quite unlikely, in fact, that you'll sneeze even in non-REM phases because the nerve cells in the brain, which trigger a sneeze on...
Who dares awaken Arcadus? Who dares the wrath of the Makers?
When you're awake, when you can't actually move.
How long did that? How long?
It like lasts for
1982 to
Yeah.
1985.
Victorians used to depict it with an evil spirit coming into the room to take away your soul, because often when it happens...
Awake, ye servants! Defend the discs!
It's like being trapped in sleep when you are awake. And then we moved flat, it never happened again. Really weird.
And the new owners.
To my side, brothers! For the Makers!
Similar.
My friend got all sorts of visions. He had horrible nightmares. My favourite is he got one of those apps on his phone so he could record what noises he made. And he had night terror that the room was full of bees. All bees.
what about sneezing underwater? Possible? Can you sneeze underwater?
You can when you've done it
Scuba diving.
diving.
Yeah, you have
Unattractive.
Yeah, it's not
Blinds
attractive.
you, yeah.
You get all the snot in your face mask. It's not pleasant. I've once vomited while diving. Yeah, it wasn't pleasant.
Well, I discovered last year what it is to be hit by food poisoning at 18 meters underwater.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was it both ends?
No, it wasn't. It was very, very dramatically from one end. Yeah. But I managed to get back to shore, but just not.
Wow, what a dialogue.
So, I am going to imagine you went back and had a bath.
Yeah, I had to burn the island we were on.
If you were in the bath and you fell asleep, could you drown?
Ooh, I worry about this. I have a lot of baths. I'm hoping the answer's no, but
Those cats, the technique is they put them on a small support floating in water, and if they fall asleep, they fall into the water, and then they immediately wake up.
Are all these the same people as are putting mirrors on the moon and then discovering? I
It's
mean, you'd
two
think they've
blokes.
got something good and sensible, like sorting out traffic lights.
Yeah. That brings us to the grim matter of the scores, which naturally are in reverse order. In last place, he should take a long, hard look at himself. With minus 13, it's Alan.
Man.
Minus 7, it's Lisa. In second place with minus 3, it's Joe. In first place, it's an absolute miracle. I mean, it's astonishing. With 8 points, 8 actual points, it's Zoe. It's thanks to Lisa and Joe, Zoe and Alan, and I leave you with this from US comedian Rodney Dangerfield. I went to see my doctor. Doctor, every morning when I get up and look in the mirror, I feel like throwing up. What's wrong with me? He said. I don't know, said the doctor, but your eyesight is perfect. Thank you and good night.
I am honored. Goddess, watch over you. Ishnu Allah.
Well, at least I can buy. And I guess I can get my druid stuff. Is that a
Be
quest
careful.
item? I think I'm starting to get fussy too because I'm hungry.
Rather than muddy the waters, let's plunge right in, up to her neck in it. It's Sally Phillips.
Ishnu Dal Diel.
Getting bogged down. It's Sindhu V. Absolutely swamped. It's
Asha Fela.
Could have teleported to Moonglade actually.
And the very embodiment of QI. It's Alan Davis. Let's admire their quagmires. Sally goes. That's nice. Sindhu goes. I've had weekends like that. Ashley goes. Wow. So many things come to mind that I'm not going to say.
Only one thing, really.
Alan goes. Giggity giggity. Quagmire? You don't know Quagmire?
It's a character from Family Guy.
Not watch Family Guy?
Peace be with you.
Let's get stuck into some questions. What's old, cheesy, found in the Bog of Allen? That's a good picture.
This has kind of blown my mind.
Why?
Because I'm from the Bog of Allen. And I don't mean where I'm from in Ireland. I mean, like,
the stars guide you.
Yeah, me English is great. I'll translate as you go through. What she's trying to tell you is about her native place.
It's not just any part of Ireland. It's actually a real part of Ireland, very close to my house. We used to take school tours
To the Bog of Allen. So it's County Kildare.
Kildare.
Yep.
Okay. And we didn't realise how special it was growing up. But it's
Ooh, nice.
Because?
Just because of its bogginess. I just realised.
Nice. Look at that damage.
Okay, that's not really what I'm looking for. It's one of the unique places where you can find something.
Cheesy thing.
Cheesy thing, yes.
Did you used to
Dairy
throw
thing.
cheese wheels into the bog of Allen?
That's where my baby bills went for my blood
Yogurt.
Keep going in the dairy thing.
Butter.
Butter. It's bog butter.
What?
Bog butter. So there's actual butter buried.
Only one person enjoyed that. My 7-year-old would be on the floor laughing. Butter in a bogger!
There is a guy on YouTube who has a whole channel devoted to flushing different things down the toilet.
Seriously?
Yeah. Soft cheese, cheesy puffs, like a whole beef Wellington. Will it flush? Yes, it does.
So I don't know what I'm more worried about. That channel exists or that you're watching
You're the
it.
only subscriber.
Sally, is he single?
And Reader, I married him.
I want to know how you crossed the bog as school children. Did you go in planks?
Do you know what? There were actually planks. And I remember one time we went on a retreat that we had to cross it in the dead of night. It was a Catholic retreat now, so I think it was trying to make us feel a bit like Jesus did or something.
The story of Jesus and the bog is one that's not often told.
Sandy, you don't just immediately walk on water.
No.
You have to build up to it.
Anyway, butter.
Butter.
Butter buried in cloth or sometimes in barrels and left there. And some of it has been there for as long as 2,000 years, so clearly been forgotten. Still edible.
Sorry, who ate it?
Alan.
Alan, yes. Because of the cold temperatures, because of the high acidity and the lack of oxygen, it actually decomposes extremely slowly. And, it makes our sell-by dates look rather ridiculous, frankly. Now, the question is, why did people decide to bury their butter in the bog?
To stop the British stealing butter.
Theft is a really good reason. What else?
To preserve it.
Yeah, preserve it particularly in the summer months.
Putting stuff in mud is a really good preservation thing. When I was young in the summer, my mother would make yogurt and say, go and put it in the mud. And then you'd forget. Then she'd say, bring the yogurt. And then you would leave and try to get someone to adopt you because...
Couldn't remember where it was.
Couldn't be, I lost the yogurt, because that would be it. So you would just leave the house.
That's how you've ended up with us.
That's how I'm here.
Okay.
Did you have any bog people come out of the bog of Allen?
There were. He went to school with us for 7 years.
Denmark has shed loads of dead people in the bogs. In fact, one of the best preserved bog bodies was a Dane, a guy called the Tolland Man.
Yes.
And actually, if you have a look, isn't that extraordinary? Quite often, corpses like this were found with incredible signs of violence. Hanged, beaten, strangled, stabbed. And I don't mean one of those four, I mean all of them.
And then thrown in the bog.
Yes, really, really dead.
That is what you call overkill.
Yeah, well, it is actually, that's the technical term, it's called overkilling.
But then, Sandy, can I ask, if we know that people are being tortured and then thrown into bogs, what kind of school takes children on a bog? An Irish Catholic school.